Apologies for the delay, folks. We will be starting in just a few minutes, okay? Hang on.
Oh, okay, no problem. Good to go. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies, we're just running a couple of minutes behind. But on behalf of the Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you to the 2022 Municipal Debate. My name's Travis Blum. I'm the past chair for the Chamber Board of Directors. I'm also the chair of the Government and Civic Affairs Committee and a business owner here in Stratford, Ontario as a financial planner with IG Wealth Management. The Chamber of Commerce has had a presence in this community since 1860. It is our mission to be the prominent business organization and to be the voice of business by championing economic prosperity and an exceptional quality of life. In keeping with our history and objective to promote good government and sound legislation at all levels of government, the Chamber is proud to host this all-candidates debate for the municipal election being held Monday, October 24th, 2022. On behalf of the Chamber, I would like to thank all of the candidates who are in attendance this evening and thank you for running. Running for political office is no easy feat, especially in 2022. And whether you get elected or not, we really do thank you for your efforts and for being here once again this evening. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for this evening. Sponsorship is a major part of what allows the Chamber to continue to contribute to and serve the business communities in Stratford, St. Mary's, and Mitchell, especially as we move through these current times economically. Thanks goes out to our gold sponsor, the Huron-Perth Association of Realtors, who are our official timekeepers tonight. So thank you to Gwen Kirkpatrick and Leslie Kipfer for being here this evening. Our silver sponsors, Fahm & Company, Duffy Burdett Lawyers, Orr Insurance and Investments, and last but not least, Scotiabank. Our goal this evening is to focus candidates on issues that are important, not just to the business community, but to the community as a whole here in Stratford. Our goal is to inform you as voters, and we want to promote transparency and accountability among elected officials. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce Eddie Matthews, the General Manager for the Chamber, who will also be the debate MC for this evening. Eddie is a well-known and trusted voice in our local community, and we are confident in his ability to once again help run a respectful all-candidates debate. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Eddie Matthews.
Thank you. Wow. Confidence and me together, that just doesn't go hand in hand, does it? Thank you all for being here, and thank you all, and respectfully, if anybody needs a mask, we've got them up here, so if I encourage anybody to use them tonight, okay? Some councillors unable to make it this evening due to conflicts or illness, but we'll pass on our best regards for them. Thank you to Rogers for being here as well. We don't have a date yet that the program will be shown, but we've also got a live stream of this evening. If anybody wants to hook up to their phone right now, there's a link at our stratfordchamber.com site. We want to bring up the councillors right now, and we'll invite the councillors to start making their way up, and we'll go in alphabetical, first name, alphabetical order, and if we can get Alan Kaspersky to come up to the stage, please, and use the center mic, and you've got 3 minutes, and we'll give all candidates up to 3 minutes to give us their platform. Mr. Kaspersky, it's all yours.
Good evening. My name's Alan Kaspersky, and I'm a candidate for Stratford City Council in this month's election. You're going to hear a lot tonight from the candidates, but you're going to hear 3 words: accountability, transparency, and engagement. I'd like to focus on the last, engagement, by asking you a question. Who knows better the kind of community you want to live in, raise your family in, retire in, do business in, than you? There is no one. You have the answers to the kind of community Stratford should be. I believe in servant leadership. Servant leadership basically says that if I can lift you up, that lifts me up. So that's what I want to do. I want to be engaged as a full-time city councillor in Stratford, because that's what the job demands. It's not a part-time job. It's a full-time job if I'm going to be properly engaged with you. I will go and have monthly meetings in each of the 5 wards where we will meet together and do 3 things. Discuss the issues, because I'm willing to bet that as many challenges as you recognize, you've thought of some of the solutions. We'll discuss those things. I'll go away then, cost out the solution, figure out how long it's going to take, what other considerations are required or necessary, and then come back to you and let you make decisions. So we'll discuss, you'll decide, and then my job will be to go away and get it done. You tell me the kind of things you want done in Stratford, whether that's housing, homelessness, inequality, poverty, roads, economic development, climate resilience, it goes on and on. So I hope on October 24th, you start to think about who you want to vote for, and you make me one of those choices. I have a table set up in the far corner. If you'd like to get to know me a little better, I have my biography there on my website, and I hope that I can earn your trust and your vote during this election. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Bonnie Henderson. Come on up to the microphone. While she's doing that, for the people that also have masks, we also have rapid testing kits for free to all businesses at the chamber office if you need them, okay? Bonnie, the floor is yours. You've got up to 3 minutes. And Bonnie, bring that microphone down and get up real close to it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit shorter. Hi, my name is Bonnie Henderson. I have sat on City Council for several terms now, and I would like to continue to be your voice at the table. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother, and an aunt to many wonderful nieces and nephews, and know how important our daily routines are to them and to others in my city. I'm very passionate about accessibility, making our city even more accessible in the future by adding more sidewalks, curb cuts, to name a few things our advisory committee is working on. We recognize business, individuals, and groups who make a difference in our city every year during International Day of Persons with Disability at our December council meeting. The environment, I've been involved in that with Civic Beautification and Environmental Awareness Committee and Perth County Greenworks before I was even on City Council. And I will continue to work on your behalf by making our city produce less greenhouse gases. Our police have already started buying hybrid vehicles, and the city bought their first hybrid truck in the spring. Electric buses are now being researched. Our newest affordable house on Britannia Street is being built to LEED standards. We're not going to pay the fee for it, but because that's over $60,000, but we're going to build it. This was passed by all of City Council. It costs us a bit more, but it's worth it. Our newest attainable affordable housing is something we all talk about and worry about, and we need it in our city. Looking at different approaches are critical in helping to make this happen in our city. Currently, the city works with the province for funding and landlords to make more places for people to live. We're working on making permanent housing for those who are homeless, along with several other groups. Invest Stratford, along with the city, are currently using Engage Stratford to get ideas on where our residents see attainable housing needs being addressed in our future. I, as a councillor, just had a call from them before I came. Being on City Council is a real learning curve, but you can be rest assured that if our council finds something isn't working, they will work to fix it. You'll remember the MZO, and council voted to rescind this. Lessons learned is what works in our city, and what doesn't is very important as we move forward in the future. We do listen to our citizens and work very hard to try and make things the best we can, so we can all enjoy living here during our work, life, and playtime. We need our city to be a wonderful place for everyone. I will continue to work for you as I'm approachable, dedicated, hardworking. Please vote for Bonnie to be your voice on Stratford City Council, and I look forward to working with new councillors. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Bonnie. While we're getting Brad up, can I get some other candidates up? I see Cody's back there. Tom, if we can get you close to the stage. Daniel and Dawn as well, if you don't mind getting up. And right now, Brad Beatty, you've got 3 minutes.
Just give me 1 second here, Eddie. Close enough. Good afternoon, and thank you, Eddie, Shannon, and all the volunteers and sponsors for hosting this event. And thank you to all of you for coming here today. A question every candidate gets asked is, why are you running? There's always going to be a hot topic of the day. Honestly, this can change very quickly as priorities can change. I certainly didn't get up here 4 years ago and say that our council, along with the rest of the world, would be addressing a global pandemic. How quickly this became a top priority, and no one ever considered it. My simple answer to you, I'm a very proud citizen of Stratford. Always have been, always will be. To serve as a city councillor is a great privilege and one which I'm thankful for. We have much to celebrate. Stratford has a wonderful history, and today we are a community that is recognized as being a leader in so many ways. I firmly believe that going forward, we will continue to be seen as a city of the future. The achievements of our city do not lie solely with councils of the past nor of the future, but recognize that we all have a hand in making our city a better place to live, work, and play. The success that we enjoy comes with passion, hard work, dedication, and perhaps a little good fortune. Can you imagine what our city would be like if we didn't have the history of the CNR repair shop? This opportunity firmly put Stratford on the map, providing us with an economic engine. Now, this building and the land it sits on is an opportunity for future of Stratford. Although it's been a painful practice of patience, it is something that we can, with vision and action, translate into an amazing opportunity. Can you imagine what our city would be like if years ago the citizens of Stratford hadn't supported the idea of creating a board of parks? Would our quality of life we all enjoy today be so enviable? Today we have a park system that is constantly being recognized as one of our crown jewels. Can you imagine what our city would be like if Tom Patterson hadn't been sitting in that same park and gone to city council years ago asking for money to chase a dream? Who thought that back then that this idea would firmly make Stratford a destination for world-class theater? Can you imagine what our city would be like without manufacturing? We have innovative industries which have been successful in adapting and growing, and with a workforce that's envy of other communities. Stratford is not an either-or city. We can boast that we are a city where industry and arts combine. Can you imagine what our city would be like without caring citizens like yourself? Although City Council provides direction, it is through vision, dedication, and hard work of the people like yourself and our city staff that we get to enjoy this amazing quality of life. If you're looking for a candidate that recognizes that we are a better community because of what we all offer, that we celebrate our rich history, and that we work together for an opportunity of the future, then I should be your first choice on election day. And this first choice is where you will find me on the ballot. I ask that on October 24th, you re-elect Brad Beatty.
Thank you, Brad. And just an FYI for any of the candidates that don't feel comfortable coming up on stage, we do have a floor mic if you wanted to use that as well. Next up, Cody, come on up. Cody 7, you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd.
My name is Cody Seben. After growing up in Stratford, I went away to school for behavioral science and moved back after 4 years. My wife and I have 2 young children, aged 2 and 5. I'm a current member of Stratford City Council, and I also work as a rehabilitation facilitator, supporting people who are living with brain injuries. I have one main priority, and that is to represent you. I've worked as your city councilor for 4 years by being responsive to every email and phone call, hosting monthly meetings, and running with each of your issues as if it were my own. I want to continue to represent you when it comes to the big issues and the issues that affect you day to day. That's the role of a councilor. I'm a firm believer that government should spend money as if it were their own, and Stratford is no exception. During my 4 years on council, I've been vocal and consistent in my belief that council needs to set reasonable targets for tax increases while maintaining existing services. I oppose the recent 7.6% tax increase and will continue to advocate for lower tax increases because I believe we can do better. I believe we need a climate plan with teeth. We need smaller buses integrated into our transit system. We need more incentives for developers to build affordable and attainable housing, and to increase our supports for individuals experiencing homelessness. A vote for me is to demand the attention of your elected officials, not every campaign season, but on an ongoing and consistent basis. It isn't good enough to ask for public input after a decision is made. It isn't good enough when you, your neighbor, or your entire neighborhood don't feel they're being heard. You deserve to feel heard and to know your input is making a difference. Being accessible is key to representing people. That's why, if re-elected, I will continue to host monthly forums with the public to ask questions and provide feedback in an informal setting. For 4 years, I've been right alongside you, whether it was an issue at your home, on your street, or one that could change the course of the entire city. 4 years ago, I asked for your support and was so humbled by the amount I received. I'm here again because I believe there's much work to be done, and I continue to believe that you need a bigger voice and a bigger ear at City Hall. I have a plan, but I, Cody Sebin, need your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. And if we can keep the candidates coming so we can move this forward, if we can get Jeff, Giza, and Harj to get up close to the table over here. And next up, Daniel, do you want to come on up before we get to Tom? Daniel Nadecki, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel, you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd.
Oh, hi, everybody. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I'm Daniel Nadecki. I'm born and raised here in Stratford, grew up here. My family is an immigrant family from the former Yugoslavia. We're actually Hungarians. It's a complicated history over there. Happy to unpack that later if you're interested. We're an East End family, embedded deeply in the manufacturing and construction, and proudly so. I'm the first one in my family to get a master's degree. I'm a licensed architect in Ontario and have reciprocal standing with the National Certification Board in the US as well. I received my bachelor's at Carleton University, my master's at McGill. I've engaged in research funded by the National Research Council of Canada in biomimetic design. I've been a research assistant to some notable academics looking at housing and solving homelessness in the Global South and even in our First Nations communities. And I've done a research residency at the Canadian Centre for Architecture. So I've built a career in public-private partnerships and trying to solve the housing crisis issue with work that I did with Sidewalk Labs and Google in the Sidewalk Labs development downtown Toronto, and then was sort of kept on to help them develop their technology and product. I'm now back in Toronto working, although living here, on more sort of large infrastructure and engineering projects throughout Ontario. I'm not really a politician. I'm kind of a background guy. I'm more interested in getting work done. I usually support other people and kind of work hard in the background. But I do think that younger people and people with more energy need to get involved in day-to-day civics. And so that's what brings me here. I think Stratford kind of needs to rebrand a bit from, 1 minute. From kind of a retirement community to a city that can offer young professionals a real human scale space to build their own families and their own careers without compromising. And I think ultimately we need to get back to building the future. We need to get back to the future in terms of thinking about how our 4 industries, the healthcare system, manufacturing, agrarian, and our tourism can sort of work together to create a better future. I think where I can contribute might be the obvious. It's in things like the Cooper site, infrastructure, housing. I think housing, we should stop thinking about it in terms of creating a perpetual renter class, but always providing an on-ramp to ownership in some way. And I think ultimately that a council member is a check on the mayor, and I think I can help toward that end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. And one of the candidates that is not feeling well, and I know some are looking at Tom Clifford off stage. No, Tom isn't coming back. Tom, would you mind coming back? Dave Gaffney is under the weather this evening. Tom wanted to speak on his behalf. Tom, on behalf of Dave, you've got 3 minutes.
Thanks, Eddie. Hello, my name is not Dave Gaffney, but I'm speaking on my friend's behalf with his permission. Dave planned to be here this evening, but as Eddie said, he's got COVID. Tonight I'm going to read his speech as if he had spoken it, so it'll be I instead of me. Born and raised in Stratford, I will use my knowledge of the city and my experience as a councillor to ensure I continue to act in your best interest. During the current term, I've served as Chair of Finance, my old job, and as a member of Infrastructure. I also served as the council rep on Invest Stratford and on Festival Hydro Services. I will do my best to represent the needs and aspirations of the citizens of Stratford. For more than 25 years, I volunteered on city committees and boards, including the YMCA, the Stratford and Perth Ag Society, the Board of Avon Housing Cooperative, the Parks Board, Heritage Stratford, Committees on Bloom, and Energy and Environment. He was busy. I enjoyed a 35-year career as construction engineer with our family company. This professional experience provided me with important insight into community development and at the same time honed my analytic and team building skills. His priorities: number one is the Grand Trunk Hub. His project will be a catalyst for partnership and innovation. Number two, public works and infrastructure. Proper infrastructure provides a platform for growth and development. I will bring experience and critical thinking when examining the projects proposed for the community. Economic development. There must be an effort to continue to attract manufacturing jobs to this community. At the same time, artificial intelligence and digital media are a big part of our present and our future. Attainable housing. Building new homes, ensuring there's adequate attainable housing is key. I will work alongside the senior levels of government to encourage housing developments. Finance. As Chair of Finance, I know resources are limited and they will need to be deployed wisely and carefully. At budget time, I will ask the hard questions, and he does ask the hard questions. Number six, environment and climate change. I support efforts to preserve the environment and to reduce climate change. I will encourage partnership with the private sector and senior levels of government with an eye to protecting the environment. You will have a dedicated, experienced, and hardworking rep on your city council with Dave. Please support Dave Gaffney at the polls.
Thank you, Tom. And Tom, thank you for your years of service too. Much appreciated over the years. And yeah. And not that I want to send anybody out because my phone's probably on, but make sure everybody's phone is on mute if you don't mind too, okay? Don Robinson, come on up, Don. We'll give Don 3 minutes and then Jeff will get you up here as well. Don, mic is yours.
Hi, my name is Don Robinson. I was born and raised in Stratford. I'm married with 3 kids. I've been in management for 35 years, 4.5 years in federal. I have my own business, and I've owned Stratford Taxi for the last 3 years, Oxford Taxi, Stonetown Taxi, and the Country Airporter. The taxi business, I get to talk to a lot of citizens in Stratford every day and their concerns. I'm running for the citizens of Stratford with the main focus being mental health, policing, transit, and infrastructure. I'd love to see the Avon Crest building turn into a spot to help the citizens of Stratford with their issues. They could go there, get help, support they need, would also be homeless off the street, and get them out of trying to live in the bus stay shelters and the banks. The Stratford Police then would be freed up to do the calls they need to do. We would have professionals in the mental health field ready to help. Finally, these challenges have existed for years and have become more visible over the last decade or so, but nothing has brought unmet mental health needs more to the front stage than COVID. There are many ways the pandemic has contributed to the challenge for every citizen of Stratford. One example is the pressure and demand on healthcare workers. The Public Health Agency of Canada, the PHAC, has recently invested millions of dollars to prevent healthcare workers' burnout and other challenges that contribute to them leaving the profession. Dr. Patrick Smith, who recently retired from and developed and leading Canada Centre of Excellence, the PTSD for Canada, Veterans First Response, in the Atlas Institute, and a partner in an organization in Australia to develop more injury guide for healthcare workers. This guide has been an institutional in helping the countries that would face organization level, team level, and individual support that can put Canada and Stratford healthcare workers, national, international leaders, mental health, live right here in Stratford and are pledged their support in any way they can to help us meet the needs. I've umpired baseball, refereed hockey, and I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for all their help they did through COVID with the rapid tests for all our employees. And I'd like to thank all the service clubs for all the work they did over COVID. And if elected, I would bring the parades back to Stratford.
Thank you, Don. Thanks, Don. Still to come, we'll get Giza and Harj and Ian up. But right now, Jeff Crowder taking the stage. Jeff, thanks for being here, and you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd here.
Hi, I'm Jeff Crowder. I've been fortunate enough to serve with many groups in our city and work as a community organizer in Stratford. Many of you will have met me on the campaign trail or at a community event. I'm running in this election because I believe we need to be more ambitious in Stratford, especially when it comes to looking out for each other and providing for our future. In this election, the issue is housing. Whether we're talking about homelessness or jobs or climate change or taxes or family doctors, facing down the challenges that we have as a municipality means ensuring that all of us has a stable place to call home. That must mean non-market housing, transitional and co-op housing. The city is considering incentives for developers, but shouldn't we ask what it is we're incentivizing? A community benefits plan would consult with those most concerned before any major project is approved. In some cases, that'll mean mixed-use commercial so that small businesses can thrive, or protecting our tree canopy, or a meaningful reduction in our building emissions. In all cases, it'll mean pushing back against the impulse to put profit ahead of people. Some people will tell you that transparency is the key issue this election, but I would submit to you that, again, the need for transparency comes down to community power. I pledge that I will do what I can to make sure that we improve the way council does business and bring more of that business into the open. If we have a plan that puts the needs of the community first and we prioritize communication, that'll make decisions on issues like the Cooper site, Avencrest, industrial development, and strong public services much clearer. I will only have one vote and one voice on council, but if your priorities are my priorities for Stratford, then I want to work with you to ensure that this is a city we can believe in. I'm Jeff Crowder, and I hope I can earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, afterwards you can come and speak with the candidates before we get to the mayor's debate. That'll be coming up at 7 o'clock. Giza Werdofer, would you like to come up? Giza, you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd to get them to your platform. Ladies and gentlemen, Giza Werdofer.
Thank you. Thank you, Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, community. We are so lucky to be here. We took for granted. I just came 2 weeks ago from Ukraine, from Poland, when I see a committee who invited 25 families in Stratford. How we are lucky to live these wonderful committees. Always, when I see our committees, wonderful, positive. The first respond to Canadian government, to the world, we're bringing Ukrainian family in Stratford. This is what about committee. Thank you for all of you guys who giving us food for this Ukrainian, shelter, water. Now they have a school, they have food, they are working every day because of you. Thank you. My name is Dr. Giza Werdofer. I'm born and raised Ethiopia. Went to school, Odessa in Ukraine, Moscow, Russia. I'm here. But my Stratford is my hometown. Make me myself, my wife Nicole, my son Aaron. You give me support, you give me help. And that's why I'm doing my volunteer job here. More than 10 years in Stratford. We are the first respond to clean mask in Canada. We clean mask. Our environment, in our area, in our river here. We did that one. And then that one. More than 21,000 people in need. Newcomer, we give them ride for COVID test, for vaccine in our area. We are so lucky. We work more than 10, 14 hours per day. Yeah, and I have no any word to say. Thank you for all of you guys. My main goal to build or to do walking clinic. Most of our Canadians who born here, they have no walking clinic. They go to London or they stay 8 hours in our hospital. We have a wonderful hospital here, but there is no walking clinic for 8 hours and then they go to London. Or Listowel, we have no walking clinic. Please vote for Giza Werdofer, that's me. It's a good opportunity to be here. I love this country, I love Canada. I want to work, I want to be here. I'm the part of these communities. Thank you very, very much for all of your support. You helped me. Thank you.
Giza, thank you very much. And still to come, can we get James and Jason to come towards the stage area? Just before we get to Ian. Harsh, do you want to come up to the stage? Harsh Nijjar, ladies and gentlemen, you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd. Harsh.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Harj Nijjar, and I'm running for City Council to make Stratford a better place for everyone. Having lived in Stratford all my life, I believe the city can do better. I'm an information technology professional and a small business owner. Residents want a councillor that will walk into City Hall, ready to champion their causes, advocate the cities at all levels of government, and always remember their roots. It's time to demand better Stratford. It starts with the basics: strong city services, good jobs, robust communities. But the goal is bigger than that, to create a vibrant, world-class city that is home to citizens from all over the globe. Our city, which is hardworking, diverse people, demand better infrastructure, better opportunities, and better representation. I will work for you and focus on affordable living, housing, accountability, transparency, integrity in the city, city roads, infrastructure, cutting red tape for faster approvals, and youth and senior programs. On October 24th, please vote Harsh Nijjar. Thank you.
Ian Morton, would you like to come up to the stage? You've got 3 minutes to give us your platform on what you would like to do if elected. Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Morton.
Thank you very much. My name is Ian Morton. Thank you very much for having this amazing evening tonight, chance to hear from all the candidates. I've lived in Stratford for a total of 12 years. Now, I have to be transparent and open. I grew up in Huron County, so I just want that out there right off the bat. I saw the light and came to Perth. But in all seriousness, Stratford drew me to this area. It's such an amazing community. So my family lives here. I've taught for I'm now starting my 23rd year. And 12 of those years have been in Stratford. I've taught for 4 years at Anne Hathaway, where I started my career, and I spent 8 years at Bedford Public School as well. I'm currently teaching in St. Mary's, another lovely community in Perth, teaching grade 7 there. So we've heard all about lots of issues, right? And we're all talking about a lot of the same things. And they're important issues, of course. Transparency. We need a council that is open and engaged with our public. Housing issues. We have a great need for a varied source of housing so that all kinds of families can find places to live. Our public transit needs to be reworked desperately so that it works for the families who rely on it. We need active transportation systems, of course, so people can step out of their vehicles if they choose to and get across Stratford, access the downtown. We need to make sure that we are mitigating our carbon footprint and responding to the climate crisis that we are fully enveloped in. We need to build equity and diversity in our community. We have such a diverse community in so many ways, and we need to keep encouraging that and provide supports and understanding for those people that come from maybe a different path than ourselves. So I am happy to discuss these further. I would love to chat with you at my table. You can look at my website, but I think the most important thing I can do is tell you why me? What can I bring to council? So for 23 years, and probably from before I was teaching, I've been building students up. I've been working to empower them to have a voice, to share ideas, to collaborate, to be open and honest with each other. We work to build community in my classroom. We work to engage our community outside of our classroom. And I think it's really important that this council going forward, no matter who our 10 councillors are and our mayor, they must engage the public, and I pledge that to you. We must make sure that moving forward, everyone's voices are heard, and I feel I can bring that. I can build the community up. I can take your ideas to the council table. I can be your access to council chambers. So I hope that you will consider me. I would love to chat with you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. And once again, please stick around afterwards and talk to the candidates. They're here, they've got their tables set up for you, so please do that before the mayor's debate. James Montgomery, you want to come on up? Thanks for being here. You've got 3 minutes to address our crowd today.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending. My name is James Montgomery, and I'm running to be part of your next City Council. This is an important election as there are at least 5 seats up for grabs, which could drastically change the course of decision-making in the city. But let's start with a little background about myself. Growing up, I lived in Seaforth, Ontario until I graduated high school and left for college. I attended Fanshawe College in London, Ontario, where I received 3 diplomas, 1 in law and security, 1 in corporate communications and public relations, and finally in computer programming. I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do, but I like school, and apparently spending money. During my time at Fanshawe, I was very active with the student union there. I was fortunate enough to be elected to the position of Vice President of Internal Affairs twice. I moved into Stratford in 2009 to be with my now wife. We married shortly after I graduated in 2011. Professionally, I've worked in the IT industry for a couple years following college. However, I've found myself in a manufacturing position in which I have worked in for the last 9 years. On top of that, I am a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. I work with youth in a instructor capacity. In my corps, I also am the training officer and the supply officer. And I'm proud to say I found out I will be taking the role of the commanding officer of that corps next month. So with all this going on in my life, why would I want to run for office? Well, the short answer is it's something I've always wanted to do since I've moved to the city. However, as there always seems to be, I've always found an excuse not to. Sadly, this changed because my mother-in-law passed away in January. And it occurred to me that if this was something I truly wanted to do, I needed to stop making excuses and pursue it, as there might not be another election cycle to do so. I started this journey with one slogan: make Stratford work for the people again. And if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, that is what I will spend the next 4 years doing. I will make it my priority to listen to everyone, to bring your concerns to council, and get you the answers that you deserve. As a candidate for City Council, I believe my strengths in communication, leadership, and problem solving make me the perfect choice to represent the citizens of this city. And with that said, I'm asking for your support so that together we can make Stratford work for the people again. Thank you.
James. Before we get to Jason and Jobina, Jody, do you want to come on up? And John Lewis as well. We'll get to you guys in just a few minutes. Jason Davis, would you mind, Kate, taking the stage? And you've got 3 minutes.
Hi guys, my name is Jason Davis. I don't have anything prepared here. I'm just going to get up and talk to you about some things that matter to me. So a little bit about me. I am a husband, father, and 310T diesel technician fixing transport trucks and farm equipment in our municipality. But before that, I was a musician for 11 years, so I kind of hit both the main things that Stratford is. Now, you're going to hear a lot of talk tonight about transparency. I just want to remind everyone that transparency is not a platform. It is just a thing that decent people do. Myself personally, I'm a heart on my sleeve kind of person. I just say how I feel and speak what I think. I don't have any skeletons in my closet. My wife needs the space. Speaking of having very little space, I personally rent, despite my specialization and how physically demanding my job is and the education it requires. I can't afford a home, which brings me to my first point as my priority, which is affordable housing, not only for middle-class families, but also providing shelter for our homeless. I've broken this down into a 3-point plan. The first point is building one communal building that supplies water, showers, bathroom, and then putting tiny homes surrounding it for our homeless. By having water only piped to one building, we can keep costs down. All our homeless can get OW or ODSP. So what they don't get the full amount though because they don't have an address. So you simply give them that unit number as an address. We as a municipality take the difference and pay so they get the same amount of money, and we just found a cost neutral way to provide them with housing. My second plan for housing is to stop selling land to developers and instead maintain ownership as a municipality until the home is ready to be sold so that we can dictate price points and size so we can build wartime homes again. Once the homes are built, in order for them to avoid market manipulation, it is done on a lottery system where a family applies. Do you currently reside in Stratford? Can you afford this home? Do you currently or have you ever owned property? If you pass this, then one of the houses will be given to you based on the lottery system. It will not go to market. It will not have inflation from investors. It will not have bidding wars. The third part is the only part that's not for profit or cost neutral. That's a reintegration center, and that is a long-term goal of mine. My second priority is to increase our availability and affordability of childcare. Right now, we have a shortage of workers, and we're not going to be able to get many if we don't have anywhere to put their kids. And my third thing is public transportation. I have been open about every step and how I plan to achieve my goals on my social media. You can find that at Jason Davis for Stratford City Council. My email is jason310t@gmail.com, and my personal phone number is 938-7454. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks very much. Jobina Powerth. Jobina, do you want to come on up? This is Jobina Powerth, and you have got 3 minutes to address the crowd and give us your platforms if elected. Jobina?
I'm a little short. My name is Jobina Palath, and I'm running for a councillor position on the Stratford City Council. A little background information about myself. My parents immigrated to Canada in the late 60s and early 70s. My mother worked as a nurse in the Stratford General Hospital, and my father worked for Schaeffler, formerly FAG Bearings, until his retirement. My parents helped instill in me a very strong work ethic. They told me, things will not be handed to you. If you want something, you have to work for it. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I was born and raised in Stratford. I received my education in Stratford. I'm a graduate of St. Michael's Secondary Catholic School. I was married in Stratford, bought my first home in Stratford, got married in Stratford, and I plan to retire in Stratford. I have a deep sense of gratitude towards this city. It has provided me and afforded me everything that I have now. I've been married for the last 13 years to my loving husband, Sean. Dogs have always been a big part of our life, and right now we have 2 massive dogs at home. We're also active in social media. For the last 26 years, I've been employed at Schaeffler Canada Aerospace. At present, I'm a quality inspector and representative for the Employee Committee. The Employees Committee has allowed me to hone my skills of compromise, leadership, and informed decision-making. Helping and serving my fellow employees fills me with great pride and has left me with the desire to do more for my community. This would be why I'm running for council. Infrastructure, affordable housing, homelessness, families in need, and the state of our residential roads are important issues that are affecting the residents of Stratford. I would like to be a voice for the people and help bring transparency and accountability for the decisions that will be made in Stratford. Working in the manufacturing sector, I believe that we need representation of regular people all the time. The ones that live here year-round and support the city year-round. One of the most common questions that I have been asked is, why have I decided to run for council? Everything seems to be going great for me my way. Because I believe that everybody should have a voice in decisions that are being made. I believe that you, the people of Stratford, should always have a say in what we do. Decisions that have to be made should be made together. I don't have all the answers, but I am willing to listen to the ideas of others and try and help make those ideas become a reality. Thank you for considering me as part of the future of City Council. Vote for Jobina Palath on October 24th. If you have any questions, I have a table in the back, and I will be staying around to answer some questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jobina. And once again, for any other candidates coming up, we do have a floor mic if you do wish for that, okay? Before we get to Joe, John Lewis is coming up shortly. Ken Wood, can we get you to the stage? And ladies and gentlemen, Jody Burbach has got the floor for the next 3 minutes. Jody?
Thank you, Eddie, and good evening, everyone. My name is Jody Burbach, and I'm running in this election because my experience as a city councilor, a business owner, and an active volunteer makes me a great candidate to successfully serve our Stratford community. I believe that the first priority for council is to continue to work on affordability, making sure that people of all ages, abilities, and incomes can afford to live here, work here, and enjoy the many things that Stratford has to offer. While we need to focus on affordability issues, especially housing, we also need to ensure that the services that we offer and the many assets that we care for are maintained or enhanced. Stratford has declared a climate emergency, and addressing this crisis is a major priority for me. The city has hired a climate coordinator and is currently developing a climate action plan. And I believe that council needs to be ensuring that we take measurable action on GHG emission reductions while also supporting sustainable economic growth. Applying a climate lens to our official plan update, encouraging active transportation, creating new programs that will help us to reduce GHG emissions as a community are some of my climate action priorities. I also believe that equity and inclusion are very important lenses for council to use when making decisions. It's my goal to continue to reach out to people who are not often invited to the table, to understand what their priorities, challenges, and barriers are, and to work together to make Stratford a more inclusive community. We are currently at the first stages of creating a municipal cultural plan and have recently hired a manager of diversity, equity, and Indigenous initiatives, as well as an accessibility coordinator. These are good first steps towards creating a more inclusive community, but there's much more to be done. In conclusion, I believe that I'm an approachable, reasonable, and fair-minded person, and in the past 23 years, I've been very involved with our community and have had the honor of meeting many of you. I enjoy engaging with people and bringing their ideas forward, and I'm always willing to have a conversation with you. I have an in-depth understanding of how municipal government works and how the three levels of government intersect, which is important for anyone seeking this role. It's been an honor to be a city councilor for the past 4 years, and I would like the opportunity to continue to serve you as city councilor. My name is Jody Burbach, and I have a table at the back, and I'd love to talk to you afterwards. Thank you.
Jody. And please, I encourage everybody to stick around afterwards and speak with the individual candidates. One of the reasons we chose this format, last time we had 24, 25 candidates that we were trying to debate with, and as you can imagine, it was a bit of a mess. This time we want you to go and address the people immediately and right after this is done in that. Kevin's all set to go shortly, but right now, John Lewis, would you like to come up to the stage, sir?
Hello. As a longtime resident of Stratford, I've felt the need to run for council to help change the direction the city is in. One of the biggest challenges facing Stratford is the lack of affordable housing. This problem is driving young people and workers to leave the city because they can no longer afford to live here. The city is going to have to get more directly involved in building affordable housing. This is not a problem that will be solved by the market. Private builders are not in the business to build affordable housing. They're in the business to make profits. And they make more profits building large, expensive homes and luxury condos, which you can see all around this building. Because of this, Stratford has more than enough housing for the rich, but a shortage of housing for anyone else. Stratford should look to cities in Europe to solve this problem. To deal with the increasing effects of climate change, the city has to do more than just declare a climate emergency and basically do nothing else. The city should start electrifying its fleet of vehicles. The city should also stop new subdivisions from being hooked up to natural gas. This is something several cities in BC are already doing. Cities, including Toronto and Ottawa, have also set up funds to make no-interest loans to people to install electric heat pumps and solar panels and have them paid back on their utility bills, something we could do through Festival Hydro. The city also needs to be more creative, or needs to create a more walkable community. Major streets in this city are being redeveloped with no bike paths or improved pedestrian infrastructure. People talk about wanting to keep taxes low. In that case, we need to look at the largest budget line in the city's budget. That's police spending. The city's per capita police spending, adjusted for inflation, has doubled since the 1980s, and the officer to population ratio has drastically increased. How many people here know that the Stratford Police Department owns an armored personnel carrier? Why? We nickel and dime every other city department. Why not the police? If elected, I would call for a review of police spending. Savings from this could be spent instead on social services like affordable housing, mental health, and drug addiction treatments, which would probably do more to lower crime rates than more spending on an already bloated police budget. Many residents of Stratford feel that the city cares more about the festival and the tourists than the people that live here year-round. This was on display when the new Tom Patterson Theatre was built. The city allowed the senior center to be demolished without any plans for a new permanent center being in its place.
Thank you, John. John, time is up.
Well, okay, don't get me wrong. Okay.
Thank you, John. John Lewis. You got to watch the clock, folks. Still to come, Kevin, Larry, and Leslie, but coming up to the stage right now, Ken Wood. You've got 3 minutes to address the crowd and tell us your platform. Ken.
First of all, I got to say, I'm from Winnipeg, and in grade 6, for the first time ever, I had to do a public speaking in front of the class. I fainted and ended up at the school nurse, so I think I've come a long way. I am 73 years old. I moved here in 2014. I've lived in a whole bunch of cities. Winnipeg, which is known as the Friendly City, we have it on our license plate, and Montreal, Toronto, Hockley Village was 60 people, so a number of other places. And I learned an awful lot because I'm interested in politics. I have a degree in political science from the University of Manitoba. I took psychology. I always wanted to know what made people tick. And politics seemed like the right way to go, just to find out what was happening. I have been, for those of you not on social media, I have been a thorn in the side of the present council for about 8 years. I have watched virtually every meeting they've had. I'm a bit of a wonk that way. I followed everything. I looked at the research reports, I looked at the background documents, made many deputations, and I have a lot of ideas to fix things, but I don't really want to talk about platform today because it's all over social media, the internet. You can link to a lot of good stuff at the Stratford Public Library. I always like to put a plug in for them. You get on their site and you can look at everybody's stories or whatever. I want to talk about values because to me, when you elect somebody, you want to find out the values of that person. That's my significant other over there, thank you. I believe in a lot of things, and very interestingly, I did this just as a project. Knight and Clay did a thing where you could make little ceramic things and basically put down things. I thought, I'm going to make a values table. What do I think my values are, and what do I aspire to? So I'm not perfect. If anybody looks at my table that's over there, you can probably see one of them that's misspelled. It's humility. I believe in honesty, openness. I believe in being accountable for actions. I believe I have 1 minute left. I believe that we've got to be honest with people. And to me, I've always strived to be authentic. I don't know if I'm ever going to make it. But I think honesty is the bedrock of that. And I try to be very clear in what I want. Now, my faults, because nobody's perfect, are that I'm struggling to be kind. When I get upset with something in politics, I'm a bit of a social justice warrior. And I will attack and I will charge. And I will really push for things. I've got great oversight abilities and research abilities. But I want to work more on cooperating and working with people. I love this whole campaign because I've met a lot of good people. I have 15 seconds. You have a lot of great candidates to choose from. I encourage you to look at their backgrounds. We need diversity on city council, and we need people with ideas that are willing to work together, and I'm certainly one of those people. Thank you. Vote for Ken Wood. That's me.
And this is being taped by Rogers, which will be shown at a future date, and we'll make sure we get that out to the media when that's coming up soon. Still to come, Larry's coming up, Leslie, and Kevin Kruskowich. Kevin, come on up. Good to see you. You've got 3 minutes to address the crowd.
Thanks, Eddie. Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin Kruskowich. My wife, Sarah Jean, and I moved here to Stratford just about exactly 10 years ago. Some of you may know me as an actor at the festival. Others may know me as your friendly neighborhood handyman. I've worked on some of your decks. More of you may know me as a candidate in the last federal election. Now, my wife, Sarah Jean, you may know her as an actor and director at the Here For Now festival. Or you may know her as an owner-operator of a lovely little boutique down on York Street. Now, I don't say this to advertise how busy we are or anything like that. I say this to show you what this community has afforded us. It has afforded us the opportunity to grow in surprising ways. We never thought we'd be here, and we are so thrilled that we are, and that's what I want to give back. I want to give everyone in this city and this city itself the opportunity to grow in surprising ways. Now, I want to tell you what my priorities will be to help us all get there. Affordable, sustainable, accessible housing created through inclusionary zoning, responsible partnerships, and incentives for developers who meet strict, sustainable guidelines. I want to help those experiencing homelessness using the Housing First model. Now, in a nutshell, the Housing First model is moving people experiencing homelessness rapidly from the streets or shelters into long-term, stable housing with supports if they decide they need them. Now, the City of Stratford is already working on that on a smaller scale with a program called Sustainable Housing of Perth Programs. I want to look into expanding that so it becomes inclusive for everyone. We need to do more in battling the climate crisis. We need to bake into our official plan green standards. Now, we need to make a lot of changes when it comes to making our city sustainable. How do we pay for it? Well, I think we need to explore green bonds, municipal green bonds, where we can all invest in our own future. We're going to talk about the Cooper site, of course. Everyone wants to talk about the Cooper site. It's a great opportunity for a multi-phase sustainable development. The first step is striking a task force. Finally, what I want to talk about is creating a local arts council. We're big enough and we're strong enough now that we need art by Stratford for Stratford. We need a non-governmental organization that is going to fund and foster culture here. Those are our priorities. But now I want to give you a promise. This is my promise to you. This is a guarantee. This is the only thing I can guarantee you, is that I will listen to you, all of you, with humility, and I will act and lead with compassion. Thank you.
If we can get Mark to come up, we'll get to him shortly. Leslie, and ladies and gentlemen, Larry McCabe, you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd. Thanks for coming tonight.
Good evening. It's heartening to see such a good turnout for the event tonight. Thank you, Eddie, for hosting this. My name is Larry McCabe. I grew up in Stratford on Willow Street. My father, the other Larry McCabe, is here with me tonight. My wife, Fiona Mongelo, the artistic director of Here For Now Theatre Company. I have lived in Stratford for most of my life. I opened up a business, Patso, 24 years ago. I've seen a lot of changes here. And obviously the pandemic has hit this community fairly hard in the sense that people weren't allowed to go out, allowed to see each other. There's a little bit of a breakdown in our community. Older people in our community not being able to get out and seeing some deterioration there. It's time for us to get back out and get healthy again. Part of the reason that I am running for council is because I am concerned about the climate crisis. I was concerned to see what happened in BC last year when we hit the highest temperature ever recorded in North America and the town burnt to the ground the next day. It is time for action on that front, and I would certainly be happy to support the efforts of the climate coordinator. That position is very important for the city. I also think that we have a huge opportunity with the Cooper site to develop a neighborhood of the future, something that can support the tax base here. Without support on our tax base, we will continue to struggle to maintain key positions in the city. And we need to also think in terms of the demographic challenges that the city faces. We are 6 years older than the population at large, which means that we do not have a workforce. I see this every day in the businesses that I work with, and we are going to be challenged to maintain our city at this level if we don't start solving that issue. We cannot be growing out into the countryside. We have the best farmland in the country. We need to think about growing taller and building units that are smaller for a younger workforce who wants to stay here. There is opportunity around the change that has happened from work from home to have a more equitable demographic mix here. And also we have to become a welcoming community. Diversity in the population in Ontario is growing. We need to see that happening here in Stratford. I hope that you can support me in this election. I hope to work for you to make a better city. And I think that we can be a remarkable community. And that's my intention if I get on council. Thank you.
You can hear me. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Leslie Bean, you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd. Leslie?
Thank you. My name is Leslie Bean, and I've lived in Stratford for most of my life. And I'm running for City Council to listen and to serve. I have worked for over 18 years in Stratford's downtown core, so I have a passion to see small businesses thrive. As a councillor, it would be my goal to assist them where they need it, but just stay out of the way where they don't. I have helped business owners connect with resources needed from upper levels of government through researching and finding timely information, such as available grants and funding for their businesses. For the past 5 years, I have served on the board of our federal member of parliament, and I also have provincial experience. I helped organize and host nonpartisan events in Ottawa, and I've had the opportunity to speak with many MPs of all parties. At the municipal level, I believe that this experience will help me work with the mayor and council to access the resources available both provincially and federally. The previous provincial government promised Stratford $10 million to help develop the Grand Trunk property, and the federal government was willing to match that. Well, we need this property developed. Our senior community is waiting on us to fulfill this promise, so we need to get this done. When it comes to resources, I believe that respecting your hard-earned money is one of the best ways to ensure affordability over the long term. I will work with council to continue to bring affordable and attainable housing to Stratford. I want my adult children to move back to Stratford, but they need to be able to earn a living and afford a home. This is part of my long-term vision for Stratford, to keep the cost of living low as we can, so that Stratford remains a desirable city for young families. People that are experiencing homelessness need us to collaborate with one another and offer them solutions. One thing I have learned over the last year working with an individual is that our city and province provide programs that really do work. We need to help people get connected, and that is one way that we can help. We as council need to keep the pressure on the province to provide essential resources for proper accommodations. These are real people with real stories. They are not just an issue for us to fix. As a mother, an author of a children's book, and leader in the community, I know that it takes hard work to get things accomplished. You have to be organized, persistent, and selfless. And I realize that the present mayor and council have made some mistakes, but I want to use my time to thank them for all the hard work they've done for our city. So they've brought us the RBC Data Center, the new Tom Patterson Theatre, they have brought the University of Waterloo campus, and the affordable housing complex on Britannia Street. So I thank you, Mayor Matheson and the council, for all your hard work and all of your time serving our city. In closing, I will listen to your concerns and work hard on your behalf to keep Stratford the kind of city in which you can prosper so that you can invest in the next generation. I respectfully ask for you to vote Leslie Bean for City Council. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. We've got 29 candidates. A few weren't able to make it because of conflicts or illness, but I'm glad you're able to participate and meet some of the people, including our next one. Mark Hunter, good to see you. You've got 3 minutes to address the crowd. Mark?
Thank you. My name is Mark Hunter, and like everyone else, I too am running for City Council. I live here with my wife, Denise, who's in the crowd somewhere, and our 2 daughters, Laura and Sarah, who are completing their post-secondary education. My day job, I'm the president and in-house legal counsel for Hunter Steele. I have more than 25 years of legal and business management experience, and I think that that would be an asset on City Council. The issue which started my campaign was the state of the roads in Stratford. But as I looked into it more, my concern grew about the state of our infrastructure in general. I believe we need a concentrated effort to ensure that our entire infrastructure is good not just for today, but for the future as well. For example, one of our climate change strategies is to transition from fossil fuels to electric power. We need to make sure we have an electric grid that can handle increased electricity flowing through it. A second area of interest to me is the development of the Cooper site. There have been a lot of great ideas expressed. I know the community has a lot of ideas that are, and many of them are fantastic. One that I think needs to be included is the senior center, because a promise made must be kept. And I don't want to burden anybody with what I think should be done with the Cooper site, because I think that needs to be a community generated response. But I think we have an opportunity to develop that site with a mix of private and public interest, and so that we can have a number of public spaces that don't add burden to the taxpayers. The last thing I wanted to speak about was the public trust issue, which I know a number of people have addressed. I'm not sure that anything untoward has happened in our city, but there's definitely a perception that the current council's been very secretive. And I think we can fix that with better communication, and that it needs to be not just a one-way communication, but a dialogue. And I'll wrap up quickly. If I am elected, what I will promise is that I will work hard with honesty and integrity and respect for your tax dollars. I will serve this city to the best of my ability, and that's why I hope that this October you'll vote for me, Mark Hunter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And as we get down to the remainder of the list, and that's still to come, Rob, Ryan, Taylor, and Tim, if you want to come up to the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, Rob Russell. Good to see you. You've got 3 minutes to address the crowd. Rob?
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Great crowd tonight. So my name is Rob Russell, and I am also running for Stratford City Council. There is a few of us. Just a little background on myself. I've lived in Stratford for 20 years with my spouse, Carolyn. We purchased the family business 15 years ago. We have 2 daughters, both attending Stratford Secondary School. And I am also a volunteer and board member on several different great community organizations, such as the Downtown Stratford BIA, Destination Stratford, and the Rotary Club of Stratford. So, why vote for me? I love working with others to achieve common goals for the betterment of the community. I love when someone else comes up with a great idea and I can actually help them to move it forward and really work with them to champion that cause. I have some pretty good ideas too, just don't ask my kids. But they can't vote yet, so I'm not worried about that. Watching the recent debate videos that Ballinran and Today Stratford did, I just found there was a lot of fantastic ideas thrown around, and I'd like to be a part of moving those forward. The biggest challenge, in my opinion, is how do we get to yes? So, envisioning solutions is important, but implementing them is equally as important. We need to build bridges continuously build and maintain bridges with the community, as a council, and with the city staff, who are often leaders in implementing these new ideas. So, how we get to yes. Hearing and addressing the challenges at every level is how we get to yes. Making sure everyone on the journey feels informed, included, and heard is how we get to yes. So, I hope that you'll help me help you get to yes, and vote for Rob Russell.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks very much. And as we continue in alphabetical order, first names, Rob Williamson. Come to the stage. We'll give you 3 minutes to address the crowd, Rob.
Thank you. I'll take these off so I can see. Hello, my name is Rob Williamson, and I'm running for a seat on City Council. Closer? Okay. Hello, my name is Rob Williamson, and I'm running for a seat on City Council. First, I'd like to thank the organizers and the sponsors of this event for having us. I'd also like to thank my fellow citizens who are putting themselves out there to run for council, and I wish them the best of luck. After graduating from Lakehead University, I was fortunate enough to go to St. Louis for a position with the American Youth Foundation as an outdoor educator and wilderness guide. I got to work with youth as a leader of survival and outdoor living, and we would teach them how to be better with our environment through outdoor education. While I was in St. Louis, I trained as an EMT and a wilderness EMT. Upon my return to Canada, I began my career in agriculture as a turkey producer, and I'm now a farm manager for the last 8 years. I'm a firm believer in helping out the community with which I live, and this is why I was a volunteer firefighter for 10 years with the Elmira Fire Department, and I've also trained as a paramedic at Trillium University. I understand the importance of giving a helping hand to those in this world that might need it. A few years ago, I helped a young man from Africa come to Canada by supplying the funding for his way here. He stayed with me and worked with me for a year while he was completing the necessary paperwork to become a citizen. I'm very proud to have been a very small part in helping this gentleman make his dream come true and know that he now lives in Ontario, married with children. Homelessness and addiction are a couple of the other issues I've heard a lot about during this election. As someone who has had a close family member that dealt with both of these, I hope to work closely with the community to come up with solutions and resources to give those struggling the opportunity to seek the help that they need. I sit on the executive board of the Tavistock Rod and Gun, where I'm the chief range officer and teach firearm safety courses. With my firearms license, my security guard license, and my Nexus Pass, I'm vetted at all levels of law enforcement, including the U.S. Homeland Security. I'm proud to live in the beautiful and diverse community of Stratford, along with my wife. I'm a hardworking citizen who believes that the council is the voice of the people and hope to be one of those 10 chosen to work for you. No one can be an expert on everything, but I will give my word that I will study, research every issue so I can make an informed decision. I'm ready to work together with the other councillors, mayors, and most important, the citizens, because your voice deserves to be heard. Never underestimate the power of your vote, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Vote for Rob Williamson. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for keeping it to 3 minutes. I appreciate that. Ryan Doyle, come on up to the stage as we start to wrap things up before we get to the mayors in about 35 minutes or so. Ryan, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. And first, I'd like to thank the Stratford District Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight's event. I am Ryan Doyle. I am running for City Council. I was born and raised in Stratford. I own my own home here. And I am the president of my condo, which I've been the president of for the past 7 years, where I champion creating a reserve fund, that's a word called capital budget, and a 30-year reserve fund plan. During the day, I work as a systems IT designer at Wilfrid Laurier University. My platform highlights are increased transparency between council and the citizens of Stratford. Be fiscal responsible with taxpayer money to avoid sticker shock levies, such as the 7.8% levy that was just recently passed for 2022, which personally translated into a 10% hike in my property tax. We must find a balance of being progressive in Stratford and the city's operating and capital budgets. We need to be mindful of taxpayer money going forward, as we are all recovering from the pandemic lockdowns and the current challenges with raging inflation. I will lobby MPP Matthew Ray and MP John Nader in our city to work together to get our fair share of the recent federal government's affordable housing funding that was announced in September. The business of Stratford do provide a good wage. However, due to the free real estate market going out of whack in Stratford, I think we need to really focus on building affordable housing. And I would like to take part of that the master plan for the Grand Trunk, where there's actually visions on there where the apartment buildings have been built, and I want to use our federal money for affordable housing to build an apartment building there. We need people to live on that site. That will start the initiative to start building in that community. This will attract also talented workers for various industries that support Stratford, like nurses, like people that work in manufacturing, PSWs and whatnot. And I'd like to continue to work towards working with partners like UW to build that fall-winter economy that we're missing in this town. For climate change, let's think about electrifying Stratford and city transit. We're thinking microbuses like such what they have at Quebec City and the city of St. John's in Canada and the different parts of Europe. And let's think about how we can decrease our demand on the electricity by putting up solar panels on roofs, wind, also solar canopies, and creating more large charging stations. There is a lot to do while balancing the budget and mindful of taxpayers' money. If you would like to learn more about me, please go to ryandoyle.ca. Thank you and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks so much. The final three we're coming up to now. And Taylor, if you want to come up to the stage, Taylor Briscoe, you've got 3 minutes to address the crowd.
Thank you so much for creating this forum today, and thank you for all of you for being so engaged and here to hear from all of us. So my name is Taylor Briscoe. You may or may not know our grandparents, Norm and Frida, who had a long history of service in Stratford, and it's one that I'm proud to continue. Who am I? I started my career focused on service. When I was 16, I went on my first mission trip to Uganda, and it sparked a career in international humanitarian affairs. I started my career at Canadian National Defence as a policy and security analyst, setting up our cyber defenses. From there, I seconded to the UN, where I was part of their peacekeeping mission. I've worked extensively around the world fighting for good governance, for transparency, for human rights, and basic dignity for all. When I was there with the UN, I ended up going back to law school, so I'm a lawyer by trade, don't hold it against me. And from there, I ended up I went back to the UN and represented torture victims. I clerked for the UN court for Sierra Leone, where we tried the Blood Diamond trials. From there, I went on to trying the Arab Spring cases at the European Court of Human Rights. During 2019, 2020, I was on my path to change the world, and then the world changed. My husband and I had a forced pause. He's a touring musician. Obviously, that wasn't happening. I was down in Atlanta finishing my PhD, and I felt that call to serve again. And we had to make the decision of where do we go next? Where is our calling? And we decided to come home. And Stratford is home. It's our chosen home. It's where we're going to raise our 1-year-old son. And it's the community I want to make a difference in. I have an extensive set of skills. Right now, I'm proud to be the lead government representative for the Salvation Army in Ontario. I'm at the front lines every single day creating affordable housing across our province. So when we talk about affordable housing, I'm one of the leading advocates the province turns to ask, what do we do? I can answer those questions, and I want to bring those innovative solutions and partnerships to Stratford. I'm an advocate for mental health. My own family's been touched by it. I lost my father to addiction and suicide. And to all of you in this room right now that has a loved one going through it or going through it yourself, I see you, I hear you, and I'm a safe place on this council. I need to increase those services in our city, especially for our youth. The demographics of our city are changing, and we need to ensure that everyone feels supported for all. And most importantly, I want to increase diverse representation on our council. A goal for me, if I'm not going to win this time, that every woman in this room says, I can do what she did, I can get up there next time, and I'm going to run next time. That's a win for me. And so that's why I'm running. I have the passion, I have the skill set, I have the creativity, and I would be so honored to represent you. Thank you.
Taylor Briscoe. As we get to the final two, Tim Forster, take to the stage, please. You've got 3 minutes to address the crowd.
This is a great event. Thank you for hosting it, and thank you everybody for holding in there. It's almost over. I have a confession. I was not born here. My wife Barbara and I chose to live in Stratford. But before Stratford, I had a lifetime of community service. I was the charter president of the Rotary Club, a vice president of the Agricultural Society. I was on the foundation board that built the hospice. I was also a member of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and on the board. I am celebrating 30 years as an insurance agent. I build long-term relationships and trust. I work part-time at the Stratford Festival in accommodations. I know the challenges we have with regards to affordable rental accommodations. The festival's emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion has also helped me grow as an individual. All of Stratford deserves to be representative. I am unique. I have municipal experience by assisting Barb's in her role as Caledon's regional councillor. I know how councillors work and how they can have an impact by sharing communities, values, and history with staff. Residents want a councillor who listens, values communities' involvement, and takes your concerns seriously. Last council term saw many groups challenge council decisions. I understand that frustration. I've personally taken a developer to the OMB over a handshake land deal. We need to end secret meetings, an absence of meaningful consultation that have defined the way Stratford Council currently behaves. I hope that changes. We need to build respect back for the public. Stratford has many challenges and opportunities. Knocking on doors, you have told me about homelessness, housing, roads, climate change, opportunities at the Cooper site, Avon Crest, but mostly what you want is more communication. I talk to everyone, and more importantly, I listen as well. My commitment is to push for more open and transparent council. Procedural bylaws need to be revised, and the culture at the city needs to change. Stratford, it's your responsibility to elect a council who works for you. You need to hold us accountable. And tonight we've seen a lot of great people up here, and I'd really like to be on your team with them. Thank you very much. I'm Tim Forster, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Tim. And our final candidate before we take a break and get to the mayor's debate, Tom Drake, would you like to take to the stage? You've got 3 minutes to address the crowd.
I'm a lifelong resident of Stratford who feels our current council has not made the progress we expected. We can do better making decisions to improve the long-term quality of life in Stratford. We need to be proactive, not reactive, in the development of the Grand Trunk site and other properties like Avon Crest and the old Archives building. Council needs to establish a framework first for designing what we want to see, and then don't react after it's too late, which is what's been happening now. Council could save time and money in our public works department by doing more work in-house. With our own city equipment and staff, we could repair roads before they degrade into poor condition, and we could refurbish the buildings we already own on a regular schedule. I'd also like to see Stratford City Hall become more user-friendly for ordinary citizens. Let's make it easier to ask questions and get advice and be heard when we have suggestions. Our local economy needs stable year-round jobs, paying decent wages in a healthy mix of businesses. Ideally, we want more light industrial operations, such as 3D printing businesses, fabrication of medical supplies, items requiring craftsmanship and skilled artisans, supply and installation of new and green building products. And we also need a strong farm-related robotic equipment and drone manufacturing business. Each of us must do something to combat climate change. So I see opportunities to switch to electric vehicles, generate our own green energy, and mandate new net zero builds. We need more charging stations in both public and private lots. There's also space around all the stormwater ponds for windmills and solar panels. And furthermore, we need to encourage homeowners to plant more trees on private property to cool our houses in the summertime. Like you, I worry for people without a home. Any new housing built these days will be unaffordable because of the high cost of labor and materials. Instead, let's focus on reopening and renovating older buildings. I envision a program where City Hall steps in to cover security deposits and an occasional shortfall in rent to encourage landlords to get back into the long-term rental business for lower income tenants. And if City Hall staff would assist these landlords in dealing with the landlord and tenant board, that would be another incentive for the problem that exists. My background in science, economics, and healthcare has been good in...
Tom Drake. Thank you, everyone. You know, we've had 29 candidates that you can choose from and some terrific people. And I give anybody credit for taking that step forward to make that decision to try to run for council. Check out Ballaran. They've got great profiles as well. We're going to take a break right now, and we're going to rejig the stage, come back with the mayor's debate in about 30 minutes or so. Thanks for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be with you shortly. to have you guys walk in with the theme of Rocky playing, but they didn't like that idea. I don't know.
That would have been good. I would have been all over it.
Thanks everybody for hanging out in the audience. On this side, my apologies for seeing my best side, I guess. My apologies for that. You'll be seeing the side. And do you want me to get this out of the way? Can you see okay? You okay? Thank you. Bob Breen, we want to give you guys a nice plug from Armor Pro and your staff for making us sound so good tonight. Rogers is also, please give him a nice round of applause. Rogers is recording this, and you know what? With the first half, no editing I think is going to be needed. Everybody did such a great job with we had 20 of the 29 candidates. I think we had 27 or 28 that were able to make it this evening. So thanks to everybody who was here. But we're now getting into the candidates running for mayor. We have great questions. We did a survey, and it was all over the city, and we got some terrific questions, and we narrowed it down to 9, and we thought we'd bring in some really good people to help ask these questions. Ryan Erb from the United Way, Nancy Orr, who's been so good at looking at the housing situation and what's affecting housing. She's been studying this for a long time. And from St. Mike's, Ella McCone is here as well. So we're going to be getting them to ask our candidates some questions. And we're going to be starting it off this evening. First names, I guess alphabetically first names. So Kathy gets to start things off, and we'll give you a few minutes, 2 minutes to at least explain your platform, and then we'll get into the questions, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Kathy, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I was born in Toronto and raised in Oro Medonte. My parents were Greek immigrants who came to Canada after World War II. They ran a family farm and they owned a restaurant. I'm educated as a biochemist and have worked as a project manager for preclinical drug development, as a technical writer, a due diligence reviewer, and a consultant. We moved to Stratford 19 years ago, knowing it would be an ideal community to raise our children. My educational background in science gives me a solid foundation in problem solving and evidence-based decision making. Recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic will require a clear vision for the future, one that addresses the challenges created by 3 years of disruption. Recovery is not just about pandemic recovery, though. It's not the only challenge we face as a community. Housing, infrastructure, the climate crisis, geopolitical instability, and more add to the complexity of the issues that affect our community. My vision for Stratford is where every resident and visitor experiences a high quality of life. Live, work, play communities are sustainable and stable communities. They're stable environmentally, financially, and socially. I'm running to lead an effective council that is solutions-based and highly collaborative. During my time on council, I've been the chair of several boards and committees, and this has given me the opportunity to develop the leadership skills that I think are required to go from councillor to mayor. I was first elected to Stratford City Councillor in 2014 and re-elected in 2018. I've been a member of the Finance and Labor Relations Subcommittee, Heritage and Planning Subcommittee. I was vice chair of the Social Services Committee and chair of the Infrastructure, Transportation and Safety Committee. I've represented Stratford City Council on community advisory boards, including Huron-Perth Public Health, Social Research and Planning Council, Active Transportation Advisory Committee, Spruce Lodge and Nonprofit Housing, Stratford Perth Housing Corporation, Gallery Stratford, and a number of others. A few examples of my leadership experience: I chaired the steering committee for Stratford Welcomes Refugees. I was a board member of the Ontario Municipal Water Association, and we were involved with projects about COVID-19 wastewater surveillance, and I co-authored an OMWA position paper on removing lead from water. My approach to decision making has always been to read all the relevant documents, do additional research where needed, consider different viewpoints, and ask questions to make an informed decision. It's important to consider the opinions that come to council. However, I find it equally important to ask who is not at the table, who deserves representation. In the end, the decisions should serve the public interest and improve the quality of life of every citizen of Stratford. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. In my era, thankfully, Leslie and Gwen have me on. It's 3 minutes we're giving each candidate, so thanks, Kathy, for catching that too. Next up, Martin Ritzma, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Eddie. Good evening. Let me share a little of my life experiences and how they've shaped me and defined who I am. My mom and dad emigrated from the Netherlands post-war 1949 at the age of 19. Landing at Pier 21, Halifax, they journeyed by rail to Manitoba, sponsored by a farmer. My dad still says that he chose Canada because the soldiers were humble boys. 2 years after landing in Canada, they bought their first farm in Matheson, Northern Ontario. This is where I was born, and I am the middle of 11 children. Many family issues had us move many times. South Mountain, Eastern Ontario, was a defining location for our family. My mom died of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, at the age of 37 when I was almost 9. The youngest was 18 months and the oldest was 15 years. That same year, our dairy barn burnt and we lost everything. At 12, we moved to Kitchener and shortly after to a farm just north of Stratford. Catherine always reminds me that good things come out of the bad, and I think she was referring to me meeting her at Stratford Northwestern. The family problems continued with domestic violence, poverty, mental health issues, and CAS became involved. I was blessed to be taken in by a Mennonite family in our community. Catherine and I attended the University of Windsor, where we both played basketball. Post-university, Catherine began her law career, and I started farming and teaching. We have 2 amazing children. Benjamin and his wife, Lindsay, are doctors in Kingston, and Jillian is an emergency doctor at Markham Stouffville, and her husband, Cal, who she met in law school, is a lawyer. We have 4 beautiful granddaughters, Frances, Marion, Ava, and Lucy. Since my mom's death to ALS, I have lost 5 siblings to ALS and 1 nephew. This Christmas, we have lost a niece, Caitlin, to ALS. I've been blessed to have had a 37-year career in education, 21 years as a teacher, 15 as a secondary school administrator, and a year and a half at our board office. Coaching was a big part of my educational career at high school and university. Another amazing way to impact the lives of youth. I often told teachers that kids don't care what you know until they know that they know you care. We moved to our present farm in 1995 and were annexed into the city of Stratford in 2006. I have served on council for 12 years and as your deputy mayor for the past 8 years. Chairing the Planning and Heritage Committee for the past 8 years has been a very rewarding experience. I trust this evening will give you a deeper understanding.
Thank you, Martin. Try to keep it to 3 minutes, and then we can get into the questions, and we'll explain that order in just a little bit. Last up from our candidates, Robert Ritz. You've got 3 minutes.
How is everybody tonight? Good evening. My name is Ritz, Robert Ritz, and I'm running for the mayor of the city of Stratford. People are asking me, why are you running when you're not a politician? I'm running because I care about my hometown and concerned that our city has been labeled with the embarrassing title of Canada's most secretive municipality. This election is a great opportunity for change. With 5 open seats on council and no incumbent mayor. Without change at the top, council will continue to do the same old thing. I believe that a member of our past council should not be rewarded with a promotion to mayor because it'll just bring more of what we've had in this city. I'm the choice for change. I change to lead council with a transparent and engaged with the community. As an architect, I've been working in this city for the last 35 years with 4 mayors and their respective councilors. I have good understanding of how City Hall works, and I have a good relationship with the staff that makes this city function. There's no question I am ready to be the mayor of this city. What makes a good leader? A person who listens and can work with people of all walks of life. My job as an architect is to listen and engage with clients, and with their trust, provide a building that suits their needs. This same skill is important for the role of mayor, in that I have a client base of 34,000 people, a building committee of 10 councilors, and it's our job to provide the home that you, the citizens of this city, want. We have great opportunities in front of us, but we also have some challenges. Tackling these will require that all of us work together, and with someone at City Hall with a creative difference, someone who will be more respectful of citizens, more focused on working together and building trust, this city will move forward with respectful and responsible growth by making citizen Stratford more sustainable, building more affordable housing, address and assist citizens impacted by addiction and homelessness, invest in a more resilient infrastructure, and develop the GTR site. We need to make sure our growth is fed by a healthy tourism and a strong, diverse economic base. I don't come to this race knowing all the answers, but I come with the willingness to work hard and to be honest and open with citizens, and to listen and consult broadly and deeply to make sure our decisions reflect the opinions of all of us. People value trust. That's why I'm running for mayor, and that's why I'm asking for your vote. I'm offering you a clear choice between the same old and a new direction, a change of culture and approach at City Hall. Get engaged. Stay engaged. My name is Ritz, Robert Ritz, and I'm your choice for mayor of the city of Stratford. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, we're going to engage with our guests who will be asking some questions. So first question is going to go to Kathy. We'll let you respond. We'll give Robert then a chance for 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes to respond, and then Martin, you can jump in anytime you like, and then we'll move down the chain that way. So the first question, Nancy will get you to ask the first question. Nancy will address it to Kathy, and then Robert, you'll get a chance to respond.
Thanks, Eddie. So we're starting with a big one. Our community continues to grow and expand, but we're challenged with needed housing achievable for our citizens. How will you address this? How will you address this need? And in turn, how will you also continue to ensure strong commercial opportunities and expansion in the future?
Thank you. I think first and foremost, I think we have to actually look at what is environmentally and financially stable growth. And I think growth within the built boundary of the city is the smartest from both of those perspectives. Environmentally, it makes absolutely no sense to be growing into farmland or using greenfield for development. I think we have to use all the land that we have that is already serviced and within our built boundary. I think in terms of housing, compact growth and building up is a lot smarter than building out into farmland. And I say that obviously for the environmental reasons and climate change, but also fiscally. Ottawa did a study where they looked at the cost of actually growing outside their built boundary and at the cost of growing within their built boundary. And what they found was whenever you built outside the built boundary, the cost of doing so, the cost of building outside of the built boundary, and then also providing services outside of that was a net loss to your tax base every year of several $100s, I think $400. Then when they looked at what happens if we actually build within the built boundary, it was about $600 net gain to your tax levy. So what that allows you to do is that if you grow within your built boundary and you grow up and you do compact growth, you build livable cities, you improve active transportation, you allow people to use transit, and you also add to your tax base that you can then use for things like social services, keeping taxes low, affordability, community services. You can start to use that money to create the kinds of spaces that the citizens can use. And I think that's where we start. We start with compact growth within our built boundary.
Okay, thank you, Robert. We'll give you 2 minutes to respond, and then we'll open it up for a 3-minute debate after that.
Well, first off, it starts by building trust with the citizens and not fighting with with opposition of advocacy groups who have not been consulted on issues that affect them. You got to work with what's around you in this area. The city, to grow, and Kathy's correct, you have to build within the built boundary. But you have to do it in a very respectful way, and we have to recognize the heritage value that this city has. That's the reason people choose to live in Stratford, is that there's this ambiance that Kitchener, Waterloo, London don't have that we have in this city. And it begins on our heritage corridors as they lead into our heritage area in downtown Stratford. Use existing buildings and because existing buildings are good for the planet in that they have embodied carbon in them, let's use it, let's insulate them, and let's intensify them with respect to density. I think I'm fine with that.
Martin, do you want to jump in on this? We'll open it up 3 minutes for
Thank
debate
you.
right
So
now.
a couple things. So when I visit students at the secondary school level, I ask them 2 questions. What's your biggest dream and what's your greatest fear? And the answer is the same. Their biggest dream is to own their own home, to have their own housing, but their biggest fear is not being able to afford it or find it. So certainly the increase in density is so important. I live on a farm that has been annexed. We haven't developed it, and nor do we wish to develop it. But that density is important, and as Robert mentioned, that infill piece is so important, but it must be done in a respectful fashion, keeping in mind the housing in the area that currently exists. The other opportunity that I think that's great is the city core and the former Grand Trunk Railroad shops. I think can serve as a big part where we can have housing that is smaller but allow people to walk to many of the daily activities that they want to take part in, whether it's work, whether it's recreational activities. The other piece that we are seeing more and more uptake in our community is the adding of granny flats to existing homes to allow individuals to stay where they can be supported and therefore taking less stress or taking more stress off our social system. So with regards to the gateway communities, I think that's where we need to build housing that is higher density and more vertical. Okay. Because as an agriculture area, as a farmer, I value that land.
Yeah, that brings up a great point, and I'll throw this out to any of you. You don't want to have land annexed. Do we then go up? Do we go out? And we've got heritage to deal with.
We intensify with what you have that is built, and you may add a little bit to it because you want to respect the neighbors in that neighborhood with that kind of intensification. But the other thing is, I presented to this council, or this Planning Heritage Committee, an idea to build a apartment building and parking garage in downtown Stratford, and was turned down on that. Well, that's true intensification, building on land that we own as a city for additional residences. And also, you don't tear down buildings like council approved at Queen and Tro because it's not good for the planet, and it's not good for our heritage character.
Okay,
and to that end, the Cooper site is a perfect spot for that.
Yeah. Okay, and Kathy?
Environmentally dependent.
Kathy, you want to add?
So I just want to talk a little bit about how we get from A to B because it's really important to think about. I think a couple of the ways that we can address some of those concerns is we really do need to actually create some infill development guidelines. And we will have infill. Any way that you look at it, if we're going to build within the built boundary and if we're going to actually build up and intensify, we're going to need those infill development guidelines that make sure that whatever is built suits the neighborhood as much as possible.
Okay, define intensify.
So intensify means that if you have 1 unit per whatever square area, you do 2 or you do 3. So it's like if you go from a single family home to a duplex or a triplex, how do you make sure that you have infill design guidelines that actually help drive that? The other part is through the official plan, making sure that the official plan is actually updated and it's coming up in the next year. Make sure it's updated so we identify those areas for growth so everyone knows what's coming.
Okay, Robert, you wanted to add?
Well, it sort of contradicts what you approved with Kathy. Martin was with the neighbors on the Queen Trove site where we're tearing down buildings, building brand new stacked townhouses along that strip with the potential through the official plan, a 6-story apartment building. Well, that doesn't really help the ambiance of the city of Stratford for people that come and visit.
Well,
and
we've
those
seen
who
that.
choose.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I was just going to say that it wasn't the potential for 6 stories. It was site-specific zoning that would be 3.5 stories. And I actually will,
Official plan is 6 stories, 18 meters.
But the official plan, it's the zoning, it's the site-specific zoning that actually allows what is going to be allowed there, and it's specific. So the other part is I will not apologize for that, for having approved that. I thought it was good infill development, and I think it's fine.
We may come back to that. We may come back to that if we have time. We're going to move on to, that's the first question. We're going to get on to our second question, and we'll address this to Martin first from Ella, and you wanted to talk a bit about public transit.
What are the largest opportunities for public transit in Stratford and area? And does the current system serve its intended demographic?
That's a great question, and thank you. And from a student, that's an important question, and I'll get to that. So I'm extremely proud of the public transit system in Stratford, both our regular busing and the parallel transit system, and the men and women that serve our users. I am proud of the new transit hub away from City Hall, and it will become even more important as we develop the Grand Trunk shops. I am proud of the investment that we make into public transit. Whether you're a user or not, we all benefit from its existence. I think the system does serve our intended users. However, the pandemic has decreased ridership, but it certainly will improve. I believe that continued improvement can be made to expand our ridership. As a high school principal, I was so happy to see hundreds of students arrive safely to our schools on public transit. I like the work that our transit department has done to enhance the number of people that we serve through our transit on demand model. Our staff continue to respond to recommendations of our ridership to improve this program and other aspects of the system. I would like, however, to go back to a citizen-based public transit advisory board to continue to bring recommendations forward. I like what we've done to increase both the number of shelters as well as improving the bus shelter facilities. The installation of barrier-free shelters with solar to power electronic devices needs to continue. Our next big step is the electrification of our busing system.
15 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay. Kathy, we'll give you 2 minutes to respond to that.
Okay. A lot of good things are happening with Stratford Transit, but one of the things that I recognized when we actually first moved to Stratford was that there's a culture here where the people who ride the bus are the people who are students, seniors, or people who don't own cars. And I think what we really need to do is actually find novel ways to get actually more people riding the bus and riding public transit. I rode public transit to go to work for years when we lived in Toronto, and everyone rode the bus, everyone rode the TTC. And I think if we could actually encourage more ridership and normalize riding the bus for families, I think that would go a long way to actually improving the system, right? More riders means more revenue. More revenue means more, improving routes, things like that. And so I think one of the things we have to look at is there are some communities that are actually piloting free transit on the weekends. And I think weekends are the time where you're actually not doing a lot of cost recovery in your transit system, but you might be able to actually, if you're not getting the kids to soccer and trying to get to work and doing all the things that you do that it's convenient to hop in the car, but you use the transit system on the weekends for those errands or those trips that maybe you don't have a time crunch on, then you start to learn how the system works, how well it works. We went down to one car recently and I rode transit for about 4 or 5 months, and it was great. It worked really well for me. Would I have chosen to do so when I had my car sitting there ready? Probably not. So I think we need to actually shift away from a car culture into actually using transit, not all the time, but at least some of the time. And I think that's certainly good for our roads, and it's good for the environment, especially as we electrify.
Yeah. We'll open it up for debate. Robert, did you have any response?
Well, just an aside for me is I drove Stratford Transit buses as a student back many years ago, and at that time we had dial-a-ride transit. And I find with transit on demand, you have to go to a bus stop to be picked up. In dial-a-ride, we went door to door. So imagine you have your groceries, you got to walk to the bus stop, get on the bus. When you get off, you got to then walk to your next destination. Dial-a-ride transit is more convenient. I think we have to look at the convenience, because if you want to fill the empty buses, you have to make it convenient. You have to have more frequent times so that as in the TTC, there's one coming by every 10 or 15 minutes. And on off hours, maybe go to a different type of system. Okay. So yes, it definitely needs people's involvement to help us with the answer.
With that in mind, what are the stats right now? Is ridership up or is it down? How is the transit on demand working?
certainly the ridership is down, but that's a reflection of the pandemic, and certainly it will increase. The one piece that I want to share with the audience that perhaps hasn't been discussed is the aspect or the transit connection system within our region, where people can take a bus at a reduced rate into Stratford, whether it's for shopping, whether it's for accessing services that they need, or to work. And that is good for our environment. Individuals from Stratford can as well take that same service to as far as London and Kitchener instead of using a car.
But isn't it kind of like Go, and I'll get to Kathy in just a sec, isn't it kind of like Go Transit and Via, where it's not convenient? It's great that we've got Go Transit that's going to Toronto, it's now a four-hour trip. Kathy.
And so I would argue
And
that,
Robert.
one of the things that we need to look at is working with other levels of government and working with other regional governments, because we have little bits and pieces of a connected transit system, but we're not actually there yet where we can have frequent, all day transit that is connected, commuters even from Kitchener, Waterloo, or from London. We're just not there yet.
Are we subsidizing it?
It is being subsidized for the province. It's a pilot project, so use it or lose it, everyone. If you really like that regional transit, you really have to start riding it. But part of that is it's like a chicken and egg. I actually think if they created more, if we put more money into more frequent and more convenient transit, the people will come. Okay. Demanding it the other way around is, I think, wrong on the part of the province and the feds.
Robert?
True, you have to have times that work, because when it arrives in Stratford, it doesn't line up with work schedules of people that might be coming from Milverton or Mitchell or wherever.
Yeah. Martin, wrapping up for us?
And once again, I want to go back. There are so many good answers in this community, particularly for the people that use transit. And that's where I think it would be of value for us to go back to a citizens-based transit committee that can carry those suggestions and information forward.
Okay. We're going to go back to Nancy to ask the next question. And we were touching on a little bit just job vacancies that we have, and that may have something to do with transportation as well. Nancy.
Thanks, Eddie. So what is your plan to address the high percentage of job vacancies we currently have in our city?
And we'll pose this to Robert, and Martin, you get a 2-minute response. Robert, she's all yours.
Ready. I flipped my schedule around here, sorry. Job vacancies in this city, we have a lot of jobs obviously for people that aren't here. One of the methods, the short-term solution would be to maybe arrange to have busing to bring them in from other communities where they can gather and then come into the city. But the bigger picture is housing, and we need more affordable and attainable housing where it's in an income bracket where they can go. And the idea for that would be to develop a Stratford Property Development Corporation where we use our own property that the city owns and develop it using Stratford builders to provide homes that are 1,000 square feet, 3-bedroom. And if we are the developer, if we own the land, that saves about 30 to 40% off of the regular price of a home, because that's the portion that the developer and land costs are. So if we become the developer, that person's gone. If we have the land, that's gone. And then with that housing, then we have places for people to live, and then they will come and work in the city, and then we can start looking at more industrial expansion in this city.
Robin says we're about 10 years away from actually catching up to what housing is needed. Martin, did you want to respond?
Certainly, and I'll pick up on the housing piece. Certainly, we're in a spot where we see housing being built in our area. We know we need that housing. Individuals want to work in Stratford and want to live in Stratford. But two other things that I want to talk about with regards to the job vacancy. That is around education and about training and retraining. I've been blessed in my educational career to encourage young men and women to take technical study courses so that they can go on and do apprenticeship and programs and see the skilled trades, which we are desperately in need of. We rely on skilled trade from immigration, but we need to promote skilled trades in our schools. And I'm proud that I've done that. The other organization that's so key in our community, maybe not heard of a lot, that responds to the needs of our community is that of the Technical Training Group, where this organization find out what the community needs, and then trains and retrains individuals for those jobs.
Okay. Kathy, we'll pose this then to you. Is this the triangle where this all comes down to housing, transportation, and a living wage?
Yes, and I was actually, that's right on my list here.
I was peeking.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the conversations that we need to be having with our employers, and I think the United Way is actually the leader in this, and the work through the Social Research and Planning Council, is to talk to employers of what it takes to be competitive. And this is what it costs for someone to actually be able to live here and have a decent quality of life. And so those should be the wages that you're paying, because it can actually be a bit of a vicious cycle if the city gets into the business of actually building housing to meet a need for a low wage workforce. That's not acceptable either, because that's that becomes on the backs of the tax levy, and your residential tax base is subsidizing businesses that probably should be having a conversation about what it takes to be competitive in this area.
Okay, Robert, you wanted to respond.
The plan would be that it doesn't affect, my idea would not affect the tax base, because it'd be independent, similar to Festival Hydro, where it's a corporation owned by the city that develops the lands outside of our tax base, and they have property that we already own. They would manage it the way any other development group would, only it's our land, and we skip the developer on our side of things with Stratford Home Builders building the buildings.
Okay. Martin or Kathy?
I was just going to say,
Martin
I'll jump in here, and this might come along later on in our conversation, but we're in the throes in Stratford of working with a partnership with engineering, with a consulting firm, on a project to develop attainable housing. And this will come up later on, but part of our responsibility as a city, if we own land, we need to be at the table with those partners, with the construction people, and provide land for attainable housing. And if we're at the table and we're providing the land, then we get to dictate what type of housing is being built.
Well, because, I see Stratford already building out past the Rotary Complex, and we're talking about homes, $800,000. It's okay.
So I was going to say, and a lot of those homes, that the decisions around those homes were baked in long before a lot of us were actually on council. So we have to be looking to the future. So we really have to pay attention when the official plan gets updated coming up. But I would say that the city already has a really good track record of building city-owned housing on city-owned property, and I think we should continue that. I think the Britannia Street apartments are a really good example of what we can do when council decides to keep its own land and task city staff with actually building housing that is affordable.
Because we get calls at the chamber office from people out of town saying, I'd love to work in Stratford, but I can't afford to live here. And I'm sure it's not just a Stratford problem.
No.
Anyways, we've got our next question coming up, and Ryan Erb is going to be asking this one. We'll pose this one to Kathy, and we'll let Robert respond to this. Ryan, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Kathy and everyone, what do you think is the largest issue facing seniors in our community, and what are your plans to address it?
I'm going to take a stab at doing two different things, because affordability and cost of living and being able to stay in your own home is a big issue for seniors. I think there's other levels of government that are responsible for some of this, and they need to step up as well as us. But the other part of it is also quality of life here. So we keep reading all the time about how Stratford is a great place to retire, right? We see those, articles all the time. And it is a great place to retire if you can afford to do so. But it's also a good place to retire because it has a great hospital, it has a great park system, it has good restaurants, it has lots of things that you can do. And I would argue every single one of those things requires people. And it requires people who are either young individuals or young families. And so I think if you are a senior or close to being a senior in this community, as I am, we should be looking to finding ways to make sure that our community actually attracts more young people and young families. They're going to be our nurses, our doctors, our parks workers, the restaurant, the people who, work at the restaurants, the people that work at the theater and at the festival. We need to support those people so that they can live, work, and play here, because what happens 10 years from now when it's only seniors who can afford to move here? It isn't going to actually provide them with all of those things that every single newspaper article says it's a great place to retire.
Yeah, and it really was. There was a report that said Stratford, I think, is the fourth most popular place in Ontario to retire to. So we do have that graying economy. Robert, we'll let you back it up here.
It's a place to retire because of the quality of life. The heritage value of this city is an attraction for them as well. But the thing is, to bring in young people, it's coming back down to housing, and not city-assisted housing, just affordable housing through different means. The official plan is being amended. The idea of the corporation is something that's to be reviewed with council. It's a new story here regarding this attainable housing group. Again, it's sort of new, it's out there, it's in there. Where was the engagement with the community before that started and was developed sort of on its own? That's a bit concerning. With respect to seniors, finding long-term care. When my mom was near the end of life, is there a room available in a local nursing home, a long-term care home? Are they going to move them and put them out in Seaforth or another smaller community where it is a half-hour drive, and in the winter and it might be their last night and you don't get out there because of the roads? It would be nice to have more of that in this city, and again, we can focus on that, but again, keep it outside of the taxpayers' bill.
Okay, Martin?
So a couple things. When I talk to seniors, certainly housing that they can move into prior to retirement. They are keen on leaving their large family homes and make room for the young families that want to move in. But the other couple things that I want to address, the idea of isolation, the idea of transportation. We've done an amazing job, and United Way is certainly front and center. And you as citizens supporting United Way, that supports agencies that help those seniors that want to stay in their own home but do struggle with transportation and isolation. The other piece that I want to go back to is the Grand Trunk shops. I envision a place where our seniors can live, be active, and have a sense of belonging and have all the amenities in walking distance at the Grand Trunk shops. That is an ideal location that I do really believe that that's going to be an answer to a lot of those issues, whether it's a smaller footprint for the senior to live in, whether it's them walking to all the amenities and feeling less isolated.
All the amenities could be there. That, and I'll get to Kathy in just a sec, that area, if I'm not mistaken, the Grand Trunk, the Old Cooper site, is larger than the downtown core itself. Am I correct about that?
And not only that, is the number of pieces of land that are on the periphery that are waiting for that development.
So to be developed, and Kathy, you wanted to add to that?
So I just wanted to add that the province controls long-term care beds, and so I think it's really important to remember that the council does advocate and should continue to advocate quite strongly for us having more long-term care beds here. I want to talk a little bit about the model, though, of long-term care. I really like the idea of continuum of care facilities, similar to what you have at Greenwood Court, or you would have Woodland Towers and Spruce Lodge. Now, Woodland Towers and Spruce Lodge is the municipal care home, but the idea that couples, you have a continuum of care where you can have retirement apartments where people can live independently, but then you also have a continuum of care where if one of the two of a couple, let's say, has to go to long-term care, they can actually stay together in the same complex and not be separated. And I realize the rules around that actually come from the province, but I think the more that we can encourage that continuum of care model of aging is really, really important. And I really think that that splitting couples up is something that we should be advocating.
But then we're going around in a circle because we're coming to long-term care and for health care and hiring and trying to get people to come to work here for what could be low wages in that. Robert, we'll end it with you if there's anything you wanted to add.
The part of the issue too for seniors is entertainment and what they are doing. And when the Tom Patterson Theatre happened, we weren't set up quickly enough to transfer them. They weren't brought into the storyline. The theater was going to expand, and facilities right now are a little light. COVID might be an issue why the numbers are down, but also the inconvenience of coming up here. For some people, it's 2 bus rides.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to the next question, and Ryan, we wanted to ask about mat tax, and we'll throw this one to Martin, and Robert will let you respond.
The municipal accommodation tax was recently approved. Can you speak to its implementation and how it can or could be used?
Thank you. And certainly I will begin by saying that I am in support of the municipal accommodation tax. I believe that it will be a great source of revenue for our city. When I travel to places like Kingston, I am required to pay this tax. I believe tourists will continue to come to Stratford with the understanding of them paying the tax. Our biggest challenge, and this is reflected in your tax levy, is that around infrastructure. We know that as municipalities, we own 60% of the infrastructure. But we also know we have access to 10% of the funds to pay for those infrastructure, whether it's repairs or new build. Our tourists, when I'm a tourist, I'm using infrastructure. And as tourists come to Stratford, the 1.5 million that come to Stratford, they are utilizing our infrastructure. And those tax dollars, or that MAT taxes, can go towards covering the cost of infrastructure or supporting the cost of infrastructure, and then in turn reduce your tax levy.
Robert, you wanted to respond? You've got 2 minutes.
The issue with the MAT tax is the process again. Like when it came about, they didn't go out to the stakeholders, the B&Bs, the hotels, and you get this kickback of citizens that are upset with the tax. And the process, they brought them in at the very beginning, explaining what it's all about, why we're doing it, how it's going to help us with cost of infrastructure, et cetera, the shortfalls. They might have been on board and they would have owned it, because when you work with somebody to help make a decision, they will own the decision with you.
Kathy will throw this, because with the mat tax, a lot of people are questioning if it's 4% now, how do we know it's not going to be 6% or whatever the next year? And do we know how the funds will be administered?
So back to answering the question what this posed is that we have the mat tax, it's 4%. Half of it has to be by legislation, provincial legislation has to be spent on tourism marketing, so that's fine. The other half is where the mat tax, like all other fees to the city, garbage, parking fees, development charges, permit fees, even the gas tax that we get, those all have to have a reserve fund that actually where that money goes, and they have to have a very defined reserve policy that outlines how that's going to be spent. And I think that's really important, because that's the stage we are at right now with the city, that we are developing a reserve policy on how that money is going to be spent. And it's a really great opportunity to start to look at the kinds of things that we can spend that money on and be very prescriptive and proactive about it. And so it can be things that are both good for visitors and residents. It can support both. And so I don't know exactly all of the different ways that money can be spent. That's a conversation we're having right now, and we should have with the community. But I do know that it offers a really great opportunity to do some really great things for the community, whether it's around community services, whether it's around parkland, whether it's around housing, whether it's around roads, because the tourists use the roads as we do, and some of them are a little rough. But we have a really, I know, John Street, yes, I know, I rode it on my bike last week. But I think this is important. It's a really great time. And this is the other part. Once you have a reserve fund and a reserve policy, when it comes to budget time, you know how you can spend that money, right?
Does somebody administer, because if it's 4%, is there an administration fee? So it may be 3%.
Well, I think part of the thing is that you have to think is all of these is staff time.
How do we look at that? And does somebody administer the administrator? Does that make sense?
Well, I guess you could ask the same question around our parking fees and our parking officers and our permit fees and our permit officers and all of those. Yes.
Okay. But how many people?
Robert first and then Martin.
how many citizens are involved in the process? Like, this stuff's happening at City Hall, but how many people that are stakeholders in this, where's their involvement? And that's what I'm looking for. There should be more citizen engagement here, the people that are going to be affected by this tax.
Martin, we'll let you wrap it up here.
Yeah, and certainly I'm going to touch on what Kathy just mentioned there. Our staff is a trustworthy staff, and full disclosure will be part of what they do. The policy will be developed, and it will fully disclose the amount of money coming in and how it's being utilized.
But it's engagement after the fact.
Okay. Next question, Ellen McCone, did you want to ask this one? And this is about emissions. And I'm sorry, we'll throw this to Robert, and Martin, you'll get to respond, and then we'll open it up for debate. Sorry.
Do you believe emissions reduction targets of 30% by 2030 and net zero by 2050 are enough? And what steps are you intending to take to better implement the greenhouse gas reduction plan and the One Planet Living principles in Stratford?
Are they enough? Well, we should probably be there already because the planet is, we're going a little far the wrong way, is my personal belief. As an architect, our Architects Association decided their systems were at end of life, and 10 years ago, and what we've done as an association, we revamped the building to the point where we are almost off the grid. We are not carbon fueled at all. Our energy bill for a 24,000 square foot, 3-story office building was $46 in the month of March. As a city, we should lead by example with the buildings we have that have equipment that's coming to end of life. And part of that process is to replace it with non-carbon fueled appliances, and also insulate and upgrade windows and tighter air filtration on the building. And that's the way to solve the problem. So if we lead by example with our many houses that we own and show the citizens how it can be done, then the citizens will jump on board and join us in making it work to help the planet continue, and that my grandchildren can live on a planet without wearing a mask full-time, giving them oxygen.
Okay, Martin, you've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, and so your question, it depends on the population you ask. I was at a youth rally with regards to climate change, and one of the banners said, "We are effed."
Yeah.
Like, we are in trouble. And so that depends on who you're talking to. But I want to go back to solutions, and I believe the municipality, and we are taking good steps. Do I believe it's enough right now? No, I don't believe so. But municipalities need to make the work and the investments of reducing greenhouse emissions part of their annual and long-term budgets. We have to build it in. We have to continue to employ individuals that will carry that work forward, and that is their responsibility. It's not part of somebody's many tasks, and it might sit on the corner of the desk, and it might get attended to. But the investment in staff that work with the city, work in conjunction with other municipalities, needs to be part of what we're doing moving forward.
Okay, Kathy, do you want to respond to that?
I was just going to say the city's taken a few really good steps in terms of hiring a climate change manager to take responsibility for this. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but in our budgeting process, there's a line about how this impacts, will it impact climate change? We often see that in the staff reports. Staff have certainly taken on the task of looking for ways to do things better. I think that, we do need to, I think wilding is a really interesting idea where you just let things grow, but then the public doesn't understand why you're letting things grow, so then we need an education campaign on, we're going to cut less grass because longer grass is better for the environment. Fleet conversion to electrical, that's important. New buildings, any new buildings the city builds should actually be built to net zero, and any building we're renovating should have all of those things built in. But I think the bigger part of it too is also that we always have to remember that climate change and COVID, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. Mm-hmm. So while we can lead with example, we also have to find ways to make sure that it isn't an economic burden to people who can't afford to retrofit their houses. Right. We have to make climate change adaptation equitable. right?
Can we climate change, the wartime homes, the heritage buildings that we've got downtown? How do you do that without changing those around?
Well, and I believe that's where the individual comes in. And once again, it depends on that individual's capacity to do that. And sometimes we have to incentivize.
At what expense, though? Because
Yes,
that
well, yeah, exactly. And so on a personal basis, I have geothermal, and I could afford to do that, so I don't use oil. We are set for a solar panel of 20 units on our barn. Not everybody can do that, but I think individuals can do the small purposeful things, whether it's a small unit on their home, and I believe that the municipality needs to support that and be actively involved in trying to cover the costs or help support the costs for people that want to do those good things.
Right. Well, I'll use one example, and Robert, you might be able to comment on this one, is the old oven crest. We used to call it oven crest because it was so hot in there. But it would cost so much to refurbish that hospital, that building, would it not?
Well, new construction and renovation construction costs are about the same, but you save the embodied carbon by not tearing a building down like Avon Crest, and and you can make it energy efficient, throw panels on the roof. And the deal is that the money you save on carbon fuels, and they've gone up in price, is what makes it affordable to transition over to something that's more sustainable.
Right, and the last word to you, Martin.
Absolutely, and we need to change our mindset, our philosophy. We need to see caring about our environment as an economic benefit and not a burden.
Okay, good stuff. Nancy, we'll go back to you for the next question. This will be addressed to Kathy with Martin to respond. It's about the cyber attack.
Thanks, Eddie. So regarding the June 2019 cyber attack on the city, how well equipped do you think we are to deal with future attacks?
I would like to say that I have a definitive answer for that, and I simply don't. The hackers are we are as prepared as we can be in working with our insurer, working with our IT department, but if anybody tells you that we know what 3 years from now the hackers are going to be able to do, know how to do, or the people issues around it are going to be, I think anybody who knows, who says they know, probably doesn't know. And I think that's one of the challenges is, right? I think it happens when you think you've got everything covered. So I think in my mind, it should be a constant looking at the systems, seeing where other places have run into trouble, because it's every day there's a new one. And what you learn from them, it's going to be iterative, it's going to be constant. And while I'd like to say it'll never happen again, I don't think anyone can tell you that's the truth, because that is the global challenge that we have now. The bigger challenge that we have is the cost of insurance and the cost of taking care of it when it happens. We have a lot of small, I think about a lot of like the health units, the long-term care homes, hospitals, schools, municipalities. The cost of sort of mitigating against the effects of these cyber attacks are escalating. And I think unless the province and the feds come up with something that actually can help us out, it's going to become cost prohibitive. And I think that's where my concern lies, is we will do as much as we can, but what happens when the cost is too much?
Martin, you've got 2 minutes to respond.
Certainly, and I believe our staff did an exceptional job with our last cyber attack. And to echo Kathy's words, are we ever going to prevent it? No. But we can do things to lessen the impact and the likelihood of it of happening. Education is a great place. Educating our staff and our city council about threats around cyber phishing and what we need to do to respond to that. And our IT department does a great job of regular updates on these are things we're looking for. Also, the idea of working with insurance companies and experts in the field. We need to invest in both the insurance and the best technology available in order to lessen that chance, because to prevent it totally is not likely, but certainly we need to protect our facilities, our infrastructure, and the personal information of our citizens.
Is there a dollar figure of how much we invest per year to protect our city?
That is a good question, Eddie.
It's the IT budget.
Yes. Anybody from IT here?
We'll pose that.
But it is a good question. But I want to once again remind our residents that our IT department are outstanding individuals that work hard and do what they need to do to lessen the impact. And we certainly can learn from other communities, and we can share what we've had success with. Just recently with St. Mary's, how we've had success on mitigating that big issue.
Robert, how do you do it in the private sector?
How do we do it in the private sector? Well, we're not as big as the city of Stratford, so our vulnerability isn't as great because there's so many people online, and with respect to the city of Stratford staff, as an outsider that uses city staff, there's a lot of, I'm finding, clarification, make sure it's you. We changed an email address. We could not get into City Hall anymore, but I expected that, and I was fine with that. You know, it was good. I actually thought the city did a great job on that with staff, and the cost wasn't all that expensive when you look at it in hindsight and compared, and it's going to happen. It's a global, it's an international issue. It's people outside of us that don't like us, and they're looking to just mess us up, and we just have to rely on our federal government to help all of us with this, because it can happen to you at home.
Yeah. Kathy, did you want to back up anything, or we'll move on to the next one? No? All done? We'll go to Ryan for the next one. This will be addressed to Martin, and Kathy will let you have 2 minutes to respond about homelessness.
Homelessness is a growing challenge in our city. If elected, what will you do to respond?
It is, and certainly we don't have the monopoly on homelessness. It's a local issue, it's a national issue, it is a global issue. Once again, we need to form partnerships. We need to form partnerships with organizations like United Way. I know with my work personally with Stratford Perth Shelter Link, I've worked for 23 years with homeless youth in addressing. These are youth that are 16 to 24. That don't choose to be homeless. And part of the next step, and we'll talk about this with the Connection Center as well, is trying to develop affordable, attainable housing, because some of those young men and women are ready now to step beyond ShelterLink into their own home, into their own housing. So it's working in conjunction with organizations like United Way, that we can support the agencies that can do that work. The other piece that I'm going to mention here quickly is the Connection Center, and that's the first step of moving people into permanent housing. And certainly we'll come back after my colleagues have had a chance to talk to this.
Okay. Kathy, you got 2 minutes?
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about expansion of the SHOP program, and it's a housing first strategy, and I think it was mentioned earlier, but it is a rapid rehousing strategy where somebody who's experiencing homelessness, when they are at the point where they're ready to actually enter into housing, you find them permanent housing, and you do provide the wraparound supports that they need to actually, because it's not just about attaining housing, it's about retaining it and being able to be stably housed for a long time. We often find that people with high acuity homelessness, that means they have additional things that are going on in their lives, whether it's trauma, addiction, mental health, illness, any number of other things. They need extra supports to be able to retain their housing once they have it. And that's where the SHOP program comes in. But it does require a high level of collaboration across both provincial government giving money and providing funds to the healthcare sector for programming. It involves social service agencies. It involves our social services staff at the City of Stratford that have the outreach workers that have that continual relationship building with people who are experiencing homelessness. But I think the other part is it requires us to talk to citizens about homelessness so that they actually understand what's involved. And I think that's people will say, what are you going to do about homeless people? And I say, are you asking me what I'm going to do about the fact that you're having coffee at Market Square and there are people who may be homeless also having coffee at the same time? Because if that's your question, nothing. because they actually are, they have as much right to sit with their friends at Market Square as everybody else. If you want to ask me how we're going to help those people in terms of doing outreach and talking to them and helping them find permanent housing, we have a long conversation we can have through, collaboration with any number of agencies.
Robert?
Again, go to the people, the experts, the frontline service staff, citizens with lived experience that, engage with these people. And if we do that, have a task force, a mayor's task force to get into it, bring in citizens to know what it's all about, to expand the dialogue and to let everybody know what's actually happening, what's going through their minds, what do they think about with respect to what am I going to do tonight, where am I going to sleep. I know the city of Stratford does take care of the people who are experiencing homelessness. They will always have shelter in this city if needed. And it's going to the people that are involved to help come up with the solutions.
But we're seeing it more and more now, and Martin, we'll bring this up just because we're now seeing people on the corners that are holding signs. We're seeing, tents being set up behind the bus depot.
So a couple things there. One, we need to build relationships with those individuals. They've been marginalized. They've been harmed at some point in their life. And it's more than being homeless. It's addiction. It's poverty. It's all those unignorable issues that we address so well in our community. And so we need to build relationships so they will take that next big step. We had an individual in Stratford that was a year and a half living rough. Through the Connection Center, took the chance of stepping in, and at one point decided, yes, I am going to live in a motel room. Okay? The other piece that's so important is the proactive work with the outreach workers. And I know through the shelter, Stratford Per Shelter Link, we reach out to boys and girls, young men and women that are at risk of being homeless and try to sort things before that homeless piece does happen. But in the end, and I don't have to say this to Stratford, it's responding in a respectful, dignified fashion.
Okay. This deals with mental health, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anybody else want to?
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I ran into somebody downtown, a guy I know, he had a rough day busking, and he said, "Hey, Robert, I haven't had a meal in 2-3 days." I said, "Have you gone to the Connection Center?" And he said, "Is that local?" I said, "No, it's at St. Paul's Church." And I said, "Well," he goes, "Is it open?" I said, "Well, I'll give you a ride there to see if it's open, because I'm not going to leave you stranded." And sure enough, there were people there, and I'm sure he had a good meal that night and took something home for the next day. Yeah. So it was satisfying. And also be part of that project as the architect who helped design it and develop it. It was rewarding.
Okay, we got 30 seconds. Kathy or Martin?
Oh, I was just going to piggyback on the idea of lived experience. I think it's really important. I think the Social Research and Planning Council has done quite a bit of work on what you call as participatory research, where you make sure that you ask the people who are going to be receiving the services what they need, what they want, what they're hoping to get from it. And it's that idea about building dignity into the process and making sure that people feel safe in having the conversations around that. So I think it is really important that we engage people where they are and when they are ready.
Well, you've got Ryan Erb right here. Nancy's also, so important with what's going on with housing. So great people to talk to afterwards as well. We've got, we'll try to squeeze in one more question before the audience gets to talk to you privately when you go to your respective tables and that. Ella, do you want to ask our final question of the night?
According to the Stratford Police Service, as reported by the Beacon Herald, in 2021, mental health calls increased by 71% and represented the largest type of calls received by Stratford Police. Do you believe the Stratford Police budget should change to better support the community and be representative of the type of calls they are receiving? Or do you believe the Stratford Police has the adequate tools to respond to these types of emergencies?
That one is going to go to Robert, and Kathy will let you wrap it up with a response.
Does the budget have to change? I would say no. What might have to happen is the tools have to be adjusted. And when I say no, it isn't like if they need money, obviously we're going to provide police services with the money they need to add this to their system, this feature of a social worker as a ride-along. And I know now that they actually do, during the day shifts, have a ride-along for domestic issues. And yeah, the bottom line is adjust your tools and increase as required for it.
Okay. Kathy, you've got 2 minutes to respond.
So not too long ago, I found myself at an event at Optimism Place and the police chief was there, and he reminded me to the very first budget meeting that he came. I asked him, they had the list of city budgets, and the police budget was at the top, and it was a bar graph. And the social services was down here. And I asked the question, how much money would we need to put down here at the social services budget so we can actually eventually decrease the budget that you have? And he remembered that as actually a really good point. And so we had a really interesting conversation about policing and how it's changing. And I honestly think that we have to it's a 2-part question. The first part is, how do we actually put money into social services and community services so that we can actually deal with the upstream causes of why people are actually, finding themselves interacting with police? And once we do that, that's a long-term plan, because I think it starts early. But in the meantime, I think the police services do have to look at, I think officer training is really important so that they know how to do de-escalation. They can recognize mental health calls. I know that the police officers that are going out with the crisis workers from the hospital are learning a lot from them. And I think those are really good things that the police services could be doing so that we can get through the gap between when we start to actually deal with the upstream. So that eventually the police can go back to doing what the police should be doing and not be doing the healthcare calls and all of those things.
Yeah, well, how do we do that? We spent an awful lot of money on that urban assault vehicle, Martin, and so that's where we want to know: can we have police officers back on the street and not have them hiding into that vehicle?
And I do not believe that our police services would oppose money that is being added, it going to another agency. We have an amazing, right now, and it needs to be extended, a program where people that are gifted and trained in the area of de-escalation ride with the police officers. I've seen it firsthand at the shelter where a police officer and that ride-along come into a situation and the police officer isn't the first to make that foray into trying to sort and de-escalate.
But how's that conversation going to go with the police department when you're going to say, we'd like to bump up social services?
And I honestly believe that our police force it's front and center in their world every day. And I honestly believe they want to see what's best for our citizens, not what's best for their pocketbook.
Robert?
I agree.
Okay, short and sweet. I like that. Kathy?
I jokingly, we said one time, wouldn't it be great if we could, all of these, mental health, social issues, if we could spend the money upstream so that we didn't need all these other services? And somebody says, but what would happen with all of these people that actually work in policing or social service or something? And so we said, a lot of the people around the table said, we'd be gladly out of a job.
Yes.
And jokingly, one of the men said, I could play jazz full time again. And it's kind of half joking. People do not go into these careers to perpetuate the problems that we have and the challenges that we have. They go into these careers, across the board, all the social services and policing, to help.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong, because I think one of the greatest things that I love about Stratford is you see the police on bikes and they're interacting with people. I love that sort of.
More police on bikes would be amazing.
Yeah, Martin.
The one thing, there's investment of dollars, but there's also investment in care and compassion to reduce the stigma. I talked last week in a school, and we talked about reducing that stigma. Youth are now more willing to talk about their challenges, and we are more willing to listen to their challenges. And included in that is our Stratford Police Force.
Thanks, you. Guys, we've come to the end of this. Now we want to do closing comments. We'll start with Robert Ritz, If you can give us 2-minute closing comment, and then we'll work down the table here.
I'm running for mayor because I care about my hometown. The last few years, we've seen all sorts of citizen advocacy groups spring up, Get Concerned, Good Governance, Wise Communities, and groups concerned about the Queen Road development and the GTR site and the potential loss of Avon Crest. Why are these groups being formed? Because council has lost touch and lost the trust of citizens. We can't move forward in council without where we're fighting citizens. We've got to stop that. We need to fix this and with active engagement and transparency from council. The only way for Stratford to move forward is to move forward with trust and support of our citizens. We have great opportunities in front of us. We need a leader who will be more respectful of citizens, who will bring us together, move forward with respectful and responsible growth, make Stratford more sustainable, build more affordable housing and limit sprawl, assist citizens impacted by addiction and homelessness, ensure our growth is fed by healthy tourism industry and a strong, diverse economic base. I don't come to this race knowing all the answers, but I come with the willingness to work hard, to be honest and open with citizens, and to listen and consult broadly with and deeply to make sure decisions reflect the opinion of all of us. That's why I'm running for mayor. That's why I'm asking for your vote. I'm offering you a clear choice between the same old and the new direction, a change of culture and approach at City Hall. The other candidates for mayor have sat on the most secretive council in Canada. They missed their chance to make the change at City Hall. I ask all of you to be sure to vote and discuss the issues with your family and your friends. Get engaged, stay engaged. My name is Robert Ritz, and I'm your clear choice for mayor of the city of Stratford. How can I help you?
Thank you, Robert. Martin Ritzma, you have 2 minutes.
So thank you, Eddie, and the Chamber for hosting this event, and thank you for being here this evening. I love to build relationships, engaging people to make decisions based on consensus. I love our community and see it through the lens of all the organization and people that I have served, organizations that I will have to leave if I'm successful. I am a forward thinker, learning from the past, but dwelling on the future. And I love to lift people up. I can lead with my heart, but still take a stance and make tough decisions. Do we have challenges in our community? Yes, we do. But our community has the care, the compassion, and the intellect to address them. Over the past few months, many have asked me, why are you doing this? And the simple answer is, I love to serve. Looking out at the people gathered here tonight, I see people that I have taught with, cried with, laughed with, shared with, volunteered with, failed with, and succeeded with, but most important, I see people who I want to serve, and I would be humbled to serve as your mayor.
Martin. And Kathy, you have 2 minutes for your wrap-up.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the Chamber for putting on this event. Thank you to all the people who came out. We're still getting used to big crowds post-pandemic, so it's lovely to see everyone. I want to talk a little bit about sort of a vision for Stratford moving forward. A vision where we can get as many people to live, work, and play here as possible. And where we make decisions where we're always actually asking that question, does this decision make life better for the citizens of Stratford? We cannot be stuck in the past. We can't be stalled in the present. We do have to move forward into the future. And I think it has to be a vision that leaves no one behind. We are an amazing community. We've seen it time and again. We saw it during when we did the Stratford Welcomes Refugees project. We've seen the United Way grow year after year. We've seen how we came together during COVID and we got through a very difficult time. And I actually think the challenges that this community has are not that great when we all start to work together on a common vision, and that's what I would like to bring. I will actually, I had a conversation at my yellow bench with a young mother who was going by with her kids in the stroller, and I said, "Hi, my name's Kathy Vasilakos. I'm running for mayor. Ask me anything in real life." And she sort of stopped, and we had an amazing conversation about her kids' school, about the secretary at the school, who everybody loves. I won't name her and embarrass her. And then the woman stopped me and said, "Thank you for stopping me." I said, "No, thank you for stopping." She goes, "You know, no one's ever asked my opinion before." And so I think what I'd like to bring and continue as mayor is to continue that conversation, not just with the people who have the time, the energy, or the wherewithal to show up to City Hall, which can be intimidating, but I'd like to go out and actually make sure that we cover the opinions and ideas of all of the citizens of Stratford. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks to the three of you. It's been great to hear your views. All of our candidates are going to be sticking around. They're going to be going to your individual tables to answer your questions as well. Thanks to our committee, our panelists. Ella, you did a phenomenal job tonight. You had a good time doing that? Ella McCone. Nancy Orr, Ryan Erb, thank you so much. Thanks to our sponsors, the Huron Perth Association of Realtors, Scotiabank, Orr Insurance, Fahm & Company, Dunphy Burdett Lawyers. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this evening. Have a very pleasant evening. Thank you.